Hello and welcome back to the Blizzard Arena here in Burbank, California. I'm Cloak and we just finished watching our first match in Group C. Roll20 takes the victory and they move further into the group. Up next, EU Dignitas taking on Korea's Tempest. It's going to be an amazing match. Let's head on over to the analyst desk and get ready for it.
That's right, thank you very much, Kevin. Time to get into business for our second series of the day. As you mentioned, it's Dignitas going up against Tempest. To my left-hand side, we have Skimmy, we have Dreadnought, we have Trixler here, joining us for the party. And what a party it's going to be, because I think that when we've had a lot of these series throughout the past couple of days, you know, we've had some strong contenders here and there and stuff like that. MVP Black blistering through and stuff like that. But I think that Dignitas going up against Tempest has the potential to be our highest level series yet. Is that fair to say?
I think that's a very fair assessment. You know, Tempest being the third seed in Korea, it feels like they are obviously, from being from Korea, very, very skilled at the game, obviously, but their team fighting and when they decide to take team fights seems to be very hit or miss. And I'm really looking to see if the experience here of Team Dignitas, you know, the self-control that they'll be able to display is what they'll rely on to overcome over Tempest.
And I mean, as I alluded to briefly before, it's just a case of, you know, are Tempest that team that people are undervaluing? Are they the case of, you know, they can just sweep through in terms of scrims, in terms of games? They come in as the dark horse and people go, hang on a minute, kind of a bit like what happened with Red Cannons. They're actually a lot better than we thought. And what better team than Dignitas to try and retain that crown, that belt, if you will, of the Korean Slayers?
I think one of the things that I learned at the last Eastern Clash that we were at is it all depends on how Tempest is feeling for the day. They are a team that are very energy-based, and if they are coming in smiling, they're bubbly, you need to be worried about them. And things, too, also, when we talked about them, talked about Dignitas in the interview, they mentioned they're actually not that scared of Dignitas. They're more scared of Roll20 because they beat MVP Black once and they are Dig, which is crazy to hear because Dig is the Korean Slayers. They dominated at MSB for a reason.
Truly been dubbed the Korean Slayers, you're right. As you say, at mid-season brawl, able to vanquish Korean team after Korean team. Now, let's just address the elephant in the room. It's very clear that Korea then isn't what Korea is now. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, yeah, absolutely. Korea, it almost feels a case of like we were so good for such a long time. And I feel like teams can kind of get into the mentality where you are so good, it's very hard to learn new things when the competition is that much of a step below you. Sometimes we see regions, there's a gap that's very close. But Korea, for a very dominant time, were so far ahead. And we've talked about it multiple times over days 1 and 2 about, you know, either they underperformed or in the next case being that they just realized that you were that much better coming into this. A lot of these Korean teams are saying, no, we've raised the bar once again. We feel like we are the #1 region.
We can continue talking about it in a moment as we can check in with the bracket to start things off here for our second series in just a few moments' time, as we do have Roll20 Esports. Not the easiest of roads through their first match, but they are victorious in the end. Now awaiting the winner of Team Dignitas going up against Tempest. So, Dred, do you have more to add to kind of how that shift has happened for Korea?
Yeah, I ultimately just want to highlight that the relative strength of Korean teams 1 through 3 have always been very, very different from one another. MVP Black is coming in as one of the most dominant teams. Everyone is projecting they will do very, very well. But unlike Europe at the very top of the ladder, all 3 of the teams in relative strength is pretty close. Yes, Fnatic may be a smidge ahead of everything else, but ultimately it is very, very dense in their skill level. So looking at, you know, a 3rd seed European team versus a 1st Korean, I feel like would be much closer than we look at, you know, this type of situation where it's the 3rd seed of Korea versus the 2nd seed of EU.
Trick, thoughts?
For me, I don't know. I think Dignitas is a team that has always been on point with execution. They're coming in here more confident than I've ever seen them before. So I'm actually just very excited for the match in general because of that reason. Okay. When I see Bakery and Mane happy and excited to play the game right now, you know you're in for a good time.
Let's focus on Team Dignitas, our first team coming into this series, as of course they are, well, they were 2nd place in the mid-season brawl and only inches away from being crowned a world champion.
I mean, they said they learned a lot from the boot camp. A lot's been discussed as to was it more advantageous for Korea or more advantageous for EU, Europe itself, EU. But they said that, no, we learned a lot from it. We had a bit of an idea of what we thought the meta was. We went over across to Korea. We saw what they were drafting. We realized, hey, hang on a minute. They've got this completely different perception on what is good and what works well. And they've kind of not exactly copied it, but adapted their meta to try and incorporate everything.
I mean, we also criticized them a little bit, too, in the interview. We're like, hey, you going out there gives time for Korea to adapt, and they are fast at adapting. We saw that at the MSB over the course of a week, and they said, we don't care. We want them to be at their best. We want to beat them at their best, which gave me a lot of hope and respect there for Dignitas coming in, willing to go to a boot camp, learn the meta, and, of course, evolve. And now we get to see the fruit of the loom for the last couple weeks of all this boot camp and what it's done for the teams.
And scoping in a little bit closer here at the roster of Team Dignitas, a player that has really stood out for me over the entirety of HGC has got to be Snitch.
Yeah.
I feel like his diversity and the growth that he has had over the year and the depth of his hero pool is debatably single-handedly like why Team Dignitas can flex and be as consistent as they are, is because he always fills what they need within a composition.
Yeah. On top of that, he was actually playing so much to a point that they had to reduce it a little bit there. And they put a little bit more of that offload on top of Mane, which allowed him to become even more defined, which is why Snitch is a jewel in this team right now and has been so dominant.
Let's focus on their opponents. Tempest, the team from South Korea, looking to upset the balance here as Dignitas was dubbed the Korean killer. Skimmy, what are your thoughts on Tempest?
I mean, Tempest, they have an interesting proposition, right? You've got H82 coming in, also with Hooligan as well, and a lot of people are pretty upset once we saw some of these changes come across, but they go into the Eastern Clash and they show like, hey, once again, you know, we're steadily rising up. Don't dismiss us completely. And it's a case of, you know, once again, I keep reiterating back to that point of, you know, the Summer Championship, when they did so well of, you know, nobody respects them and say, yeah, you're from Korea. Korea's a fantastic region, but, you know, you're not going to be much of a challenge. In this matchup specifically, Dignitas said they didn't scrim Tempest, so we don't know exactly where that shifting of balance in that 50-50 lies.
Seems like Hong Kono there at the very end has a slightly more subtle American flag attire this time around, so nothing too flamboyant just yet.
It should be noted that this roster is just absolutely amazing. When you look at the track record that they have with their international performance, they seem like they have a dream team almost to a certain extent. It just feels like they haven't found a way to find themselves on the same page, to be able to work as a pure unit. And more importantly, for me, it feels like they rely a bit too much on their aggression and their team fighting. They feel like it's almost a moment of panic. If they suddenly are struggling in the world of macro, they go, this is it, we have to team fight now. And it oftentimes is why I think that they have found themselves into that third seed for KR.
And one thing that we heard from them was that they said getting to the round of 4 will be easy when we interviewed them.
Yes, they think getting around the 4 will be easy, especially if they don't have to face another Korean team. They think it'll be more exciting for them to face off against North America, Europe, or any other region because they feel like they'll be dominant in that fashion. And they're hoping that it all lines up like that because, one, it's exciting for them, and it's exciting for the fans. So they were thinking about you guys. That's probably one of my favorite things about this team is they're always thinking about the people at home, and they have such a lax environment. And when they're that lax, it can be this good. What would happen if for 2 months they just went straight hardcore boot camp? That's scary to think about.
All right, let's check in with the global cheer bar to see how things are unfolding over in the HGC universe as you guys keep contributing to your favorite teams, and you can continue to do so as we continue on towards the Deadly Chaos Lizard. The Arcane one was nice, but the Deadly Chaos Lizard is more deadly. So, gentlemen, looking at how Team Dignitas go up against Team Tempest here, can they continue to be the Korean killers that a lot of people are anticipating them being?
I mean, I think both teams have said if they're on their A game in terms of emotionally and draft prep wise, they both deliberately haven't scrimmed each other because they are in their groups. So they don't want to try and reveal too much at this stage. We saw what Roll20 just did before. This is, I think this series alone is going to tell us a lot as to where their power levels really lie in terms of the global scale of Heroes of the Storm.
Let's find out which battleground we're going to be going to for game number 1 here in this best of 3 as Team Dignitas will take us to Infernal Shrines. It's a map where they have a lot of comfort.
A lot of comfort. It's a very standard map in Europe. It's one of the first 3 battlegrounds you normally see in a best of 5 series. It gives you macro capabilities, allows for you to run a majority of compositions that are strong. So Dignitas should be in a good spot with it. Going back to your previous question, though, about whether Dignitas can continue to be the Korean Slayers. I do have a slight worry with Dignitas.
Okay.
And that is that they are not able to unleash their main weapon, which is going to be Mane mages, period. Okay. Because they have double support that they are playing because it is the meta. And you can see a little bit of resentment towards that. You know, Mane, he wants to play those high explosive characters, and him playing a support almost feels like a shame. But at the same time, that means we're working together as a team. Right. So it's this kind of a double-edged sword that I want to see how it unfolds in the next couple weeks.
All right, get ready. Game number 1 here. One of the biggest series so far of the tournament. Team Dignitas goes up against Tempest to see who moves on to the winners match.
And what I'm really interested on their trick, actually, is we saw what Fnatic did yesterday, where they went back to that sort of mid-season brawl meta of just running that one support. I mean, Dignitas for a long time were running compositions very similar to that, so I'm wondering if we're going to try and see here from Dignitas, let's try and play standard, not reveal too much, but as it is, you know, it is the group of death. Both these teams, all these teams really going to utilize anything they have to try and get out.
And on that same question here, looking towards Dignitas, what do they need to do? For me, it is relying on not going to the team fight. Dignitas seems to be, compared to the rest of European teams, a bit better or a bit more dependent on their team fight success. But I do think here against Tempest specifically in this matchup that they should focus a bit more on their macro, because if you can set Tempest to feel like they need a all-in Hail Mary play, you can almost 100% rely on the fact that they will go for that initiation. And I feel like that is going to be a really good tool that Dig can, again, use over and over again throughout this series.
Question for me is, how high of a priority will Brightwing be between these two teams? In the tournament so far, we've already seen it a lot, but we do know that in Korea, Brightwing is very popular, and Dignitas towards the end of the HGC phase in their season, we're starting to lean a little bit more on Brightwing as well. So that will be a hero that we'll definitely see mixed up a lot in these rotations. ETC and Sonya, though, will be the front line set up for Dignitas.
Just a snap pick there. Wonder already, will Tempest even risk going into the Tracer opportunity with that high Tassadar? This is something that Korea has, utilize as that double support meta, using the high mobility, high single target burst to try and dive into the backline. It does provide a bit of risk, considering that Sign typically is going to be the Tracer player flexing over into that, and it makes the entire, roster and who's onto what hero have to kind of mix up a bit there.
Does it concern you, though, that ETC and Sonya on the other side, both heroes that if they do catch that Tracer, it should be a dead Tracer?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, yes, it is a heavy deterrent to go into that direction, but Tempest in their draft diversity overall has been very unorthodox compared to the rest of its region. So I'm willing to, kind of throw out anything that we have seen from them into the past year.
Wouldn't mind seeing it here. We've seen Tassadar and Tracer in the mix a few times with the highest of win rates, but we haven't seen it with Tempest. Here we are, Rhaegar and Johanna coming in here. So we have Johanna, not seeing much of her in this tournament, but she does have her strengths, and she got buffed a couple patches ago.
I mean, she's played 4 games so far at this tournament, not a single win on the board so far, and we've all been complacent saying, why? Why would you, pick this over the likes of Mirrodin? I mean, in this situation here, it is a map that is, to a degree, dependent on that wave clear, which would be something that they're desperately after. I mean, the same with Tesla and Rhaegar as well, but it comes down to this ideal of what are you building for, team fight, macro, or shrine control?
Right now, it looks like it's Shrine Control and Macro is the focus. Tassadar, Rhaegar, and Johanna all are amazing in the wave clear department, some of the best of their singular roles. So I automatically feel like Tempest is putting a lot of emphasis there into their macro play and not so much into that team fight. Granted, they do have a lot of great synergies within all of those heroes.
Exactly.
And I'm very much expecting to see, that Vala kind of follow up here with that Reign of Vengeance right after the JoJo Condemn.
That's what I like here. You point out all the points about map control and being able to control the waves, but we also get the control of an ETC and Sonya to a degree, which is needed in this tournament. We have yet to have a major answer for that Sonya. But if you're able to lock down the ETC, you stop that 1-2 combo from coming in, the power slide into a poison spear that can delete basically Tassadar or Rhaegar.
And one, interaction that we don't get to see too often that I really do enjoy is Tassadar, specifically Archon into Sonya, and trying to kind of flank the Sonya and draw aggro. He's one of the best heroes at being effective at low HP, and if you can ever make the Sonya not dive onto the back line, it is a very, very good thing for your team. But that snap lock-in for Vala and Morales here, Skimmy.
Yeah, I like it a lot. I feel like definitely Tempest were looking for that Vala. I feel like if you still go down that route of picking up Tracer, it would be a complete mistake given the first 3 picks that Tempest have gone for so far. So Lunara seems to be a little bit more appealing given you got Morales. But that 5th and final pick, you'd imagine they will still flex into that double support, which would patch that single support style that Morales lacks in.
I'm struggling to identify what is going to be the hyper carry that fits into the composition now for Tempest. With the Greymane remove the Vala, Lunara so far out of the current meta.
There's still Cassia, but Sonya Poison Spear into that, we've seen that shut that down multiple times.
I'm immediately feeling like maybe they're going to have to transfer into that Tracer I was talking about before to make up for this clever play Dignitas has had post-secondary ban phase. It just doesn't synergize with that questionable Johanna that you brought up a little bit earlier there.
I mean, I would bring up Zul'jin as a possibility, but we legitimately heard Tempest say, no Zul'jin, he is bad. Literally in perfect English.
Time to find out.
Let's find out if they would pull it out here. And surprise us all, it's going to be that Tracer into the Malthael.
Did not expect the Malthael coming out from Tempest there. And a quick response for the Falstad. We've talked about the interaction between Falstad and Malthael. In my personal opinion, it's just a direct counter. Yes, it does rely on a bit of, timing, and it's still a little bit of a skill matchup, but ultimately, if Falstad plays his cards right, he's going to be the one coming out on top.
Something that really interests me about this draft is just how quick and responsive Team Dignitas have been with all these picks. It's never any like, what are we thinking? Let's discuss this. We're locking this one in. That's what we want. That's what we're taking, and that's what we're running with.
So much so that they start with solo support.
Yeah.
Yeah. Coming out here and making a statement. I mean, it makes sense with Sonya and HGC when you have that strong front line. Morales is great again behind a major front line that's very robust like this. Already, Sonya's hard to kill, and now you have Safeguard and heals popping in when you have the energy available. Good start here for Dignitas, and I like their confidence here coming in and being deliberate with their picks. That is something that they've always done at tournaments, is say, we are ready to move in, and they always respond quickly. I
can already say I was a bit, kind of skeptical about Tempest's success here. I talked about it, team fighting versus the macro focus, but the deliberateness, I guess, is what I'm going for here, that we saw out of Team Dignitas with their draft, and we talked about the clever play post-secondary ban phase. They seem very calculated in every ounce of that draft, and suddenly I go, I'm really scared now here for Tempest.
And I feel as if Mene's a little bit wasted on that double support role. He was saying, I hate playing Brightwing every single game, and I can almost imagine in a comical way, he sees the draft and goes, Brightwing's banned, boys, I ain't playing double support. We're running at one support. Let's get me on some DPS. I want to get kills.
The funny thing is I almost wanted to bring it up, but there you go. You beat me to the punch for sure. Looking at these two comps, how they match up against one another, is the Tracer Malthael enough to bust through this lineup that Dignitas has?
Falstad and Vala will have to be careful. Obviously, we always talk about the squishy in the back line. If Tracer is able to get back there, especially off the back of a good engage from a Malthael, I could see it working out. But I like the control that is here for Dignitas. This is very EU, is what they've played in the past, and this is something that they pull off well.
I will say that going into that singular support into the Task Tracer composition is one of the... When you have a Tracer, she only has one win condition in team fights, is getting that one blow up. So if you have the double sustain, the odds of her getting that, much like reset compositions, it just kind of immediately falls apart. So not going into that for Dig, we talked about the confidence displays, but I ultimately feel like it would have been a safer draft to go in that direction. So I feel like it does give Tempest maybe enough of an edge to use that Task Tracer, dive onto the solo support, especially a Morales, one of the best to be able to play that into. So immediately it goes, Tempest here actually might have a better shot than I originally gave them.
Yeah, I think to really just finalize that point, okay, if they're not winning in the wave clear, if they're not really putting up much of a control when it comes to the Shrine phase themselves, alarm bell's going to start ringing for me personally for Tempest's chances in this game. I always feel like the team fight potential that comes out of Dig, very comfortable, very confident, very safe.
We have a little bit of time here whilst our teams get ready and good to go. I'm going to play a devil's advocate and say, is something like a Tracer Malthael something that's going to threaten Bakery in the position that he's normally in? Because usually we see him going for medevac, and then if they are diving onto the backline to try and get to him, he pops his medevac and he pops away for a little while. So they don't really have the burst to bring that medevac down. So there are some ways that Morales can deal with this.
And the Falstad situation, right? You have the failsafe of being able to protect. There are tools to help defend the Morales. It just goes, when I look at a Task Tracer composition and a map like Infernal Shrines that is so dependent on macro, I go, I can outpush you, even with your good wave clear. So the biggest thing I got to do is stop the pulse bomb damage. And again, it's not that it's bad the direction Dignitas went, but ultimately it did leave some holes that maybe they could have avoided.
Okay. Well, it sounds like we are ready to go to game number 1. It's one of the most anticipated matchups here for the group stages. So let's get into it. Dignitas goes up against Tempest to find out moves on to the winners match.
That's right, Groot, How, and Rocketweed here to bring you the most anticipated, the most exciting starting match of the group stage, Tempest versus Dignitas. What do you think of the draft, Jay How?
Oh, it's kind of, I did not expect the Tracer. We know they've been known to play that. I didn't expect it on this Battleground. I think the guys brought up a lot of really good points. So it's like 2 different drafts, and those are the kinds that I like because Tempest likes to fight, Dignitas likes to play. We're going to see what happens.
Yeah, we saw all of the elements, right, the ingredients for Tempest to be able to get the recipe for Tracer. Since it is Sign who plays, they have to have a warrior that Hankono feels comfortable
Instantly
on.
were like that,
so they got Johanna, then you and I know that they don't like to get the Tracer until after they've dealt with Brightwing, and so they had to ban Brightwing, and by that point, they were ready. So let's see how it's going to work out. Let's hit into game 1 of this best of 3 between Tempest and Dignitas. I am so pumped to get this series underway. I have been so excited, Jay. I've been looking forward to this series all week long.
All week long, the minute they sent us our rotations for casting, I'm like, wait a minute, I get that series, let's go. I'm really excited.
We always get good series, you and I. Here we start. And in the blue, our Team Dignitas from Europe, Bakery, will be playing Lieutenant Morales, JPL playing ETC. We've got Mene playing his Falstad, potentially a Mage Stab, Snitch playing Vala, and finally, Xaylia playing Sonya.
On the right side for Tempest in red, we are going to have Hyde, of course, on the Rhaegar, as we know him to be. H82 on the Malthael. See what he can do on that melee roll. Lockdown, most exciting hero in the game of Tassadar. Sign, of course, on the Tracer. And then rounding it out will be Hankono on Johanna.
Haven't seen a lot of Johanna. There's been a little bit of Johanna here and there. JPL finds all of the team of Tempest, gonna face melt away. And Dignitas going straight into the bottom lane. This was just a clever ploy to slow things down, get some time for Dignitas to do some damage in the bottom. Going to a different lane. They don't want to be vulnerable, right, to the Tracer picks early on in the game, because there are some heroes who will be vulnerable to those picks, and that's what Tempest is all about with this Tracer pickup.
Stay super safe on these rotations early, and you know, you'd alluded to the fact that Mene loves doing damage. He loves playing mage builds, but he has resigned himself to the seasoned marksman build, leaving that burst damage, of course, over to Snitch, playing that Q build, Hungry and Arrow build that we've seen become so prevalent over Phase 2.
What was cool to see as Tempest was opening up with their draft, getting things like Rhaegar and Tassadar earlier on, is yes, it did allude and give them the opportunity to get into the Tracer, but it also made sure that if they did get Tracer, who was low on wave clear until level 13, they still had people who could keep the lanes pushed in their advantage and give them places and openings for Tracer to move around the battleground and just try to get those earlier picks on somebody like Morales or even Paula.
And the interesting thing, that's a very good point, because you can translate that over to the Shrine as well, because their early part of the draft was clearly between the Tash, Johanna, Rhaegar, a lot of Shrine control. And I had the point yesterday of, like, there was a composition like this, but it was a more team fighting style map. Here, it's like, all right, if we don't get that burst kill off that pulse bomb, things like that, we have something to fall back to. That's why I love Tempest draft here. They've got a good blend of a little bit of fight and a little bit of Shrine clear. It's gonna be interesting to see how this plays out.
Yeah, I adored it too. And on the topic of the Shrine clear, Sonya for Team Dignitas will be crucial in that regard. Not going into block, we've seen a lot more of Warpaint here, that auto attack, being able to sustain yourself a little bit more. There's just no purpose of getting blocked versus the team composition that Tempest had between Tassadar and, of course, Tracer. The first Shrine is underway. It is in the middle lane.
I really like the approach of Dignitas here. They recognize they're not going to have that great clear, which I think is where the seasoned marksman comes in. Once they get that boomerang at level 7 for Falstad, it'll make it a bit easier. But when you do not go into that multi-shot build, Gilly, you're struggling for the clear, especially when we look at the other side for Tempest.
J-Hell, this is exactly how we thought this would play out. Dignitas focused more on the macro game, on objectives, playing the long game, and Tempest is ready to brawl. H82 on one of his best heroes. We talked a lot about the Tracer, but we haven't even touched on H82 playing his mouth ale. He is extremely self-sufficient on that hero. Tempest have devoted everything they have to the Shrine. They need to get it, and ideally get some kills along with it, but JPL staying strong in the front, keeping everybody safe with his zoning.
It's funny because we see a nice Punisher picked up there. Zelia kept splitting off, and by the way, Falstad stayed bot lane the whole time, and Dignitas is looking at almost a full level lead. And the thing about that is, by contesting, patiently and cautiously contesting, they bought more time, because every time you take a skeletal defender away from your opponent, it just takes them longer to capture that. Very well done by Dignitas overall.
And it ensures that Tempest had to stay there too. Otherwise, Tempest is losing out on every front. So they forced Tempest to keep what they committed to there. And now Dignitas doing one of their patented moves that they do on Infernal Shrine, starting early on with the camp invades, heading straight to the Khazra of Tempest. Try to clear these out, then they can go back and get their own. Tempest should be pretty familiar with this kind of aggression. They do, after all, have MVP Black in their region, who loves camp invades themselves. But Tempest will have to resign to defending the camp, and that just continues the pressure that Dignitas has already started up versus Tempest.
Very well versed in that very aggressive style there in Korea. But big things will be happening here post level 7. Boomerang comes online for Falstad. Vala gets that repeater arrow as she goes into the Q build, allowing some big burst damage. We'll see if Dignitas, when they have those invades like that, obviously they've studied their teams. Maybe they know that they'll have further opportunities at other points in the game. So now post level 7, we'll see if they can really put that on. Talk about burst damage as well, Poison Spear. So if they find somebody out, they will be punished.
Now, Johanna historically has had an issue with trying to set up and engage with the team. Conviction being moved to level 4 and giving that 25% movement speed is helping a lot with that. And now adding Blessed Momentum to that so that Johanna can continually have these condemns of giving her that movement speed and getting better up into a position to be able to start and hold down a fight for Tempest. But J-Hal, you were mentioning maybe that we might see a different heroic for Johanna.
Yes. I believe we were talking about when you're going this dive style, we might see a little bit of falling sword action, which was recently buffed. I think for the fans, a little bit of crowd pleaser action a la ETC might be a little bit fun. I don't know if we'll get that. Obviously, the Blessed Shield so strong and on a short cooldown, but Falling Sword could be considered.
Now Tempest is trying to get some structural damage back at Team Dignitas. They've moved to the bottom lane, but Dignitas are just going to counter siege, and they're the ones who are doing it in the lane with the Punisher. This is going to be really nice for them. Johanna moving around the side from a flank, avoided from a barrel roll of Falstad in the bottom lane, but this does open up Tempest to put their full aggression and the aggression of the Cosra camp on the fort.
This is a really interesting approach when we look at it from a macro style, because when you have those moments, the best response that you could possibly do is to not respond to what they're doing and simply respond in your own right by pushing top. The thing about this whole situation is that now you're going to be pushing. Yes, Tempest has a slight lead, but you're definitely getting this Punisher. And by getting this Punisher, Gilly, taking out that fort, the Punisher instantly gains more value. So I feel Tempest, they almost felt like they had to try and get 10. It'll make the defense a little bit easier. But if we look at late game, because the next Punisher will not be top, but when it starts to cycle back through, we talk about potential win conditions being open up there. We'll see how much impact it has late game.
Yeah, this is a monstrous push for Team Dignitas. Not only did they get the Punisher, with the Shaman camp, they have already taken down the towers. This is a really scary Punisher jump, but they use Iron Skin earlier on just to get the Punisher down in a place where Tempest can attack it and try to bring it down quickly. But this is a very early keep that most certainly will be going down, and a medevac dropship for the disengage.
Easing on out of this one. It's like, all right, it was fun. I appreciate you guys having us as guests, but we're going to head on home now. See you next time. But as you said, very early keep here, just 6.5 minutes in. And again, that's a potential win condition down the road for Dignitas. So very well played by them on the recognition, pushing that in. That's a major lead here, especially when you look at the fact that Tempest is the one without a global this game.
Yeah, it's really cool that Team Dignitas were able to do that because they have so many different disengaging abilities. They also used Gust just to make sure that they could get out of there fully focused on getting a win condition earlier on, opening up the battleground, and making things harder for Tempest, making them make maybe some bad choices around future shrines, because now there will be forever Catapult pressuring that lane.
I think the one thing to consider here is we saw last time Dignitas went in for the camp invade. This time, they kind of pulled the reins back a little because they know that they instantly have battleground control. They've got Falstad as the global. They have Catapults pushing. So instantly they found themselves in a lead, which makes it a little bit easier. But we've got a Blessed Shield going out onto JPL. The Pulse Bomb's going to come out. He does go down as the first blood will be there. The shield, or excuse me, the
healing?
Armor,
yeah.
Armor reduction and everything there ended up going in. The healing reduction definitely paid off.
Yeah, that's what I was going to know,
death.
is the Touch of Death healing reduction from that, just to make sure that Morales couldn't keep ETC alive through that. And that is most certainly what Tempest needed to do, and that's what they were looking for. What Tempest is known to do when they get behind in the game. Look for the fights. Dignitas should have realized this, should have known that Team Tempest would want to be out there somewhere to get a fight, and that's going to create some space for Tempest to move back, get some of their mercenary camps controlled, and try to get a presence in these lanes now so that they can either look for more fights or have a better setup for the next shrine.
But I want to talk about what just happened there, because ETC had a very aggressive power slide, which means that they're not on the same page communication-wise, and I've analyzed JPL. I watched every single one of his ETC games in Phase 2. He has a little bit more aggressive approach than his EU counterparts, to where he will power slide to the enemy side. He hit the bump, he hit the slide. And generally, unless you know that your team is following up for a kill, you never want to power slide to the enemy team. He has the burst damage there, but we saw 0 follow-up, and so all he could do was casually walk away. And that was actually, I think, one of the big points there. It's a very subtle thing, but if you don't have that follow-up, you don't have that burst kill, it's almost bad to go in and power slide to the enemy side. He ended up getting punished for it. And a lot of that, maybe it's communication, maybe it's just a little bit riskier play, but things like that have to be taken into consideration.
What made me happy from Tempest in that team fight too was not an overcommitment of heroic abilities. Using the Pulse Bomb, yes, he can build that up really fast. And then Blessed Shield, which is on a low cooldown. They still have things like Tormented Souls. They still have more options for them if they want to take a fight along with this Punisher. And this is an Arcane Punisher, so it's gonna hurt.
It's gonna hurt indeed. It's gonna be pushing in here. The mid wall already down. Nice bait on over. They're gonna pull it all the way back as far as they can. Of course, having Bala on your side with that Q build definitely makes this a little bit quicker. Fort's gonna fall. We'll see how much more Tempest can get with it.
Falstad has pushed the top lane all the way into the base,
Oh, yeah.
still hanging out up there. If the gate goes down, we might see him try to flank back behind, fly in, and then gust everybody into the keep. Tempest realizes this. They do not want to, of course, take any core damage, but they also don't want to be opened up to that. Because there's already keep down, they need to make sure that they're backing off at the appropriate time. That will make future sieges a little more difficult for Tempest.
Falstad just like straight chilling. You know, sometimes we'll see the giant killer at level 13. Instead, we're seeing the cooldown reduction on that tailwind. Again, Mene likes to do damage. One of the best ways to do damage is with that boomerang, that Q going out. I think that's more of a personal choice. I mean, there's not a lot of good giant killer targets on the other side. It's just generally the way that it's complemented. But definitely mixing it up a little bit. Got a slide and a lot of damage going out here.
Slide, Rain of Vengeance, Iron Skin is used, Mosh Pit catches, but there's a cleanse to get H82 out. Grenade was hoping to pull him back into the fray, but H82 is A-okay, and Tempest survives the Mosh Pit. A long cooldown for Tempest to do something with.
Yeah, it's a particular interest, and we actually saw Blessed Shield just kind of come out there as well as a little safety net. So, I mean, I guess if you call a cleanse and a Blessed Shield, those are each 60 seconds. They kind of equal 120 seconds, just that's not the way the game works. Mosh Pit, 2-minute cooldown, not going to be there for the next team fight.
Yeah, and especially, it's such a game-changing heroic when you look at the types of heroics there are. That's why it's such a long cooldown, is because it can single-handedly win you a game. ETC, once he gets 20, again gets this huge spike where he can single-handedly win the game with something else. So every time you're able to get through that, it is just a sigh of relief for a team.
Rhaegar potentially getting flanked here. As they go into the bush, they don't find Rhaegar in there. They don't have the hard flank. I almost feel like they might have been able to do that, but I don't know. Anyways, Gilly, check this out. We've got Top Shrine up here, and we talked about how much value that first one got getting all the way to the keep. Now, we're kind of in that danger zone. If Tempest, obviously, they have the Janna, you can bait it over the mid-keep, stay alive a little bit longer. It's a little bit early in the game, but you get one, maybe two picks. If you're on Dignitas, you take out a member or two of Tempest. This Punisher could be game-ending. It's a bit early, but it definitely is a possibility.
A potential lights-out situation for Team Dignitas, but Tempest also doesn't have to worry about being across the map from the lane where the catapults are pushing. So there are pros and cons to being on either side of the battlefield over this top shrine.
Just 17 seconds away from that mosh pit. They're going to just go ahead and backdoor in. Just backdoor the core right away. This is Dignitas going in. They're going to try and do this right away. We see all members of Tempest hearthing. They are starting to take the shields. They're getting the shields down now. The health on the core starting to fall, but this is a crazy call, Gilly.
Mosh pit. No, he takes him down, but Tracer's inside the mosh pit. Now he's out. Dignitas are on the core. They're trying to bring it down, but they are getting slaughtered in this. They lose Falstad. They've lost 4. Tempest defends their core at 55%.
I know what you're saying right now. If you're out there watching, that, what in the hell are you thinking, Dignitas? But let's put it this way. This is like old school Juice Pirates in that you have a fort that is defending top, which is why right now you see Tempest, they're making a move for the middle keep. They have to open up a win condition. They have to have their own back door because now Dignitas, they have 55%. They only get stronger as the game goes on. Remember, level 20 upgrade on the medevac now has that protected status when you come out. Now they can do that again. Getting through 55%, I mean, they just brought down 45. Gilly, this right now is a threat. They could backdoor again. They could backdoor again later. That is, it's a strategic call. This is some new blood. It's such a different take on an old school strategy. It's looked wild, it looked crazy, but that is next level right there.
J-How, I think back to the series between Dignitas and Fnatic, and you know, a lot of people have been looking at Fnatic, and because Fnatic won mid-season brawl, have just put Fnatic on an echelon above everyone else. But Dignitas was the only team to take games off of Fnatic this entire part. They took 2, and they were basically about to win it. Medevac is up, but there's a Punisher that Team Dignitas are going to head to instead, at least trying to show that they're there, seeing if they can get Tempest up. Maybe that's the play. We'll have to see, but there was a point where Team Dignitas tried to go for a core, but it wasn't as concerted as that one. Ended up losing the game. They did lose the series, but Dignitas has evolved since then. They are a much stronger team.
If you tell me I give up 45% of a core for a fort, I will take that all day long. Yes, you give up a bit of experience, but you saw Tempest. They were all hanging back. There was nobody pushing forward, and now that is a threat for the entire game. This is a strategy if you told me this was a strategy coming in, I'd be like, I don't know if that's going to be the case. And now that it's here, I absolutely love it.
And think about, as you continue to go to these later talent tiers, at 16, we don't see Stim Drone. Obviously, you need the medevac to make that kind of strategy work, the backdoor, so you don't have the damage from that. But now you're getting Nerves of Steel. At 20, you get Ignore Pain, so Sonya can last for a lot longer on there. ETC maybe be able to get something like Torbus for a longer hold on people, or even just Death Mosh to hold him down if you try to focus him. And then the threat of Wind Tunnel. We saw it yesterday from Fnatic and how they're able to use that versus
Gilly.
Team Freedom. It is terrifying.
You are selling me so hard. Say no more. I am all in post level 20. Dignitas, show me what you got. They do have to hope that the next Punisher is not mid. Again, that mid keep, again, you can always bait it, but there's always the threat. You have to make sure you kind of have to avoid team fights to a certain extent. It's a very dangerous game that both teams are playing right now. And this is going to shape up to be a very exciting ending.
It's perhaps the most dangerous game. This is only a best of 3. No room for error when you are playing against a team like Dignitas, like Team Tempest here. They want to be able to go on in the upper bracket because that is a possibility of being able to get first in your group. And we know that first in the group is such a better advantage because of how we're going to be looking at the round of 8, the quarterfinals at Blizzcon.
All right, Dignitas in a moment. We might have a fight, but their inability to risk it right now. It's 20 is dangerously close here for Tempest. That mid keep is a liability. At this point, death timers are long enough that if you have a team wipe, it will be game for either team right now. We already saw the medevac. Right now, Tempest, they have got to be on edge. They've got to be on their toes right now, Gilly. We've got mid Shrine. The Shaman camp going to be pushing top to keep those catapults at bay momentarily. Will Dignitas pull the trigger pre-20 without that protected step?
Early dimensional shift and lockdown catching up will be the slows, the dismounts on people as Honkono was heading in from the other side. But nobody caught with that 20 advantage for Tempest. Radiating faith for Honkono. Not indestructible. Longer stun, more stuns?
It's just Honkono in a nutshell here.
Oh my. That's such a risk.
Hit multiple people. We'll see if they can capitalize on that. Again, the Tracer, Malthael composition, of course, Malthael holding his, seeing if he needs that insta-res. But right now, Dignitas, they're playing the 20 game. That is all that they're doing is they're playing the 20 game. They're going to have to use this position here. Mid-keep will fall. At this point, you have to cut your losses, play it safe, bait that Punisher over to the mid or top, whichever one you're feeling comfortable with. You just have to soak now, play the 20 game. That is all that they're doing, but it could go so wrong if they're not careful.
Dignitas has set up a foundation now to win this game through the top. They have taken out the bottom four at least, but yeah, continually canceling these backs. Tempest, ever watchful of that top lane?
Dignitas is not showing. And I believe that was a medevac threat. But that medevac is simply a backdoor to your base. It is on a short enough cooldown. She baited so hard there as the sound went out. The keep should still fall here, but Dignitas playing it so safe. I am just astounded at how well. But Tempest, they recognize us, Gilly. They're going
in. They're going on in with those 20s, with the Twilight Arc on Tempest. Will do the same thing that Dignitas did to them a few minutes ago as they start to try to bring down this core. But they don't have a lot of siege with what they have here. They've got a Malthael. Malthael doesn't add a Reaper's Mark to the core. They haven't even been able to cut through the shields yet, but they're hanging around. They're seeing if they can find anybody who steps out. Just one toe over the line.
That's it. They still have Gust if things get crazy here. Falstad has to be extremely safe. They get the pressure. Remember, no indestructible. That is Iron Skin that is out. You see the heals coming in there. The shields have fallen down to 94%. This is such a tense moment for both teams. They just have to wait for more minions to get here before they can posture up. They're going to clear those of Dignitas. Level 20 getting dangerously close. The core is now fallen to 90%. If they commit, they will hard commit. The core continuing to trickle away.
Tempest always going for what Rally Jaffa calls the super plays. Dread talked about it here. They want to take control. They want to be the ones who dictate whether they win or lose. Right here, the post bomb. EGC is gone.
ET's gone. The mosh pit is no longer available. The Gust is now out, and we see H82 going in. Snitch getting so low, finally getting healed up. The core down to 50% and falling. They are still on this right now. They are trying to end the game in the same cautious approach.
30.
It is down to 30.
25% and still going down. Tempest are staying strong as they take out Sonya. Tempest take out Team Dignitas in game 1.
Oh my, Tempest with the crazy response to understand that their only win condition is to stay and idle, and you gotta think the Dignitas strategy backfired. They played it so exceptionally well. but the talent to your advantage, the Infinite Archon, stayed up for at least 2 minutes there. They held ground. They were able to close it out. What a wild game one of the set.
Yeah, I bet that felt Infinite Archon when your team Dignitas trying to deal with that. They may have only had the mouth ale, but the way that Tempest moved in and out with the minions, the way they held control, and then the turn, the flip, everything on ETC, taking him out in the blink of an eye was insane. That game was amazing. I can't wait to see what we have in store for the next one.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, of course, to the desk as we continue things on. Game number 2 about to begin later, but of course there is so much to talk about with that game at number 1. So many plays, so many weird little dynamics that you don't normally see in Heroes of the Storm. Where do we even begin? I suppose we have to first start with the core attempt from Dignitas, Dread.
I mean, it was an insanely risky decision. You can ultimately kind of understand the thought process there to be able to draw them back and not give up the objective at the same point in time. But ultimately, if you're going to move into the core and you're going to make that kind of risky all-in play, you have to be considering the momentum swing you're going to give the opponent. And I feel like Tempest immediately understood that this was possibly going to be the only momentum swing they were going to get into their favor, and they did a great job of forcing their hand, even though they had, I mean, near non-existent siege.
I mean, we discussed about the threat that they had with the wave clear for the shrine control, and it felt like, you know, that was their go-in strategy, right? They took every single Punisher for the most part. They'd always go and, you know, command that side of things. They had the XP, they had the wave clear. We discussed that was really the biggest strength that Tempest had into this one, and you saw the Hail Mary play that I'm sure Trek wants to discuss as well with that medevac going in. There were some cool little interactions where it does pop up in chat where we were discussing Dread as well, where you can say, like, I'm going to bait in as one member in the chat. You could see a few times where Tempest had time to back, and you can play those mental games, try and draw people out, but it wasn't to be enough. Yes, they had a few defensive cooldowns like the Gust, like the Mosh, but as soon as JPL went down, that was the beginning of the end.
The enemy has summoned a medevac is one of the scariest things that you can see on the front screen there. And they try to use the moment for defense pretty deliberately. Like, let's go ahead and use that, try and make our opponents back home. And if 1 or 2 goes back, it's totally worth it, right? But Tempest just a little bit too smart, feigning their backs constantly, waiting for that actual response, and then moving for the defense. Remember, the first time they went for that core rush, only 45%, which meant, all right, if we get back in time, we have an entire 55% core plus the armor to defend. So Tempest actually wasn't under any pressure of the game ending.
And it should be noted on that core dive that we saw out of Team Dignitas, it would have been a lot more successful if 1 or 2 things had happened on Mene's part. Either the flight comes in a little bit earlier, able to join with the rest of the squad, hit an effective Gust, and by debatably, you know, 4 or 5 more seconds for the team, that's putting the core 20, 30% down. So now we see the core at 20 to 30% HP overall. And that's when Dig can use that medevac backdoor strategy and threaten way better than they were able to. But he was unable to stop the backs long enough, but also unable to be effective in deterring or getting damage into the core as well.
All right, okay, we're going to take a short break as a word from our sponsors comes now. But after that, of course, we have game number 2.
The 2017 Heroes Global Championship Finals are brought to you in part by Republic of Gamers, Intel, T-Mobile, and NVIDIA.
Tempest leads 1-0. Time to see if Dignitas can bring it back or if Tempest can look strong here and hold down the game. The interesting thing about that, Dread, when you actually went into that game 1 is that Team Dignitas, up until the medevac point, you know, they'd already killed a keep. They were still looking in an okay position. So it's not like they had to go for that kind of play. Is that fair?
I think it's fair to say that they didn't have to take that maneuver, but I also can see the thought process. I don't look at that as the riskiest core decision I've ever seen out of all competitive heroes, but I did feel like it was a bit uncharacteristic for a team like Team Dignitas, especially, again, for the consistency and experience that they have here in the competitive scene.
Well, of course, we do need to find out our second battleground as we move on. You can give me thoughts in just a moment, boys, as we're going to have Tempest taking us to Dragonshire.
Dragonshire, a long one here, one that typically actually does lend itself to the EU style, being slow and deliberate. Dignitas has been a little bit more aggressive on execution in the few weeks that we did see them in the last MSV, but they've been working pretty hard on making sure that their macro play has been on points, a bit slower. It's not going to be very high in kills. And we actually saw that in that last game up until that entire core rush where they had 5 wiped. It was actually only 1 kill for Tempest to the 0 of Dignitas, and I would put Dignitas ahead in terms of control of the map.
Well, let's get into it. It's going to be game number 2 at the moment. We have Tempest leading 1-0 in this all-important match here, really to determine kind of the makeup of this group. Skimmy, starting with you.
Yeah, I mean, it's just really interesting to see. I mean, the head-to-head matchup, this is what the fans want. Both teams saying that they want the EU-Korean game to take place, trying to assess those power levels, as we said at the start of this series. And I mean, it's interesting. The core rush, as the thought process goes, if you are going to commit to that, you need to find that infinite value, that ability to say, look, it's going to be down to 20%. We can go for another back-to-back Hail Mary attempt, and we have that win condition in sight. And you have to start wondering where things go. Tastar is going to be a lock-in here. Threatens the ideal now of Dignitas going for the Trashadar themselves.
We're still sticking with the Trashadar?
I have to have something to walk away with this event from, man.
Yeah, he's been on it for a
ANZ
while.
are already out of the tournament. Somebody needs to remember us.
All right, what are we thinking for Tempest in their first 2 slots?
Immediately, wave clear was the priority on a map like Infernal Shrines. It's Dragonshire, so I would assume to see them go in the same direction. Yeah. I don't know if I expect the high Johanna by any means, but I wouldn't mind if they try and put priority onto a Rhaegar to try and make up for that.
I wouldn't mind seeing an early Sonya here. I mean, this is Dragonshire. You need that top laner. You need a strong top laner that you can control. I also think Muradin is wonderful on this battleground as well, being able to rotate between the middle top lane, go in and force those fights. Ooh. But Tempest intends to take away the Tracer themselves here, and they pair it with a Morales.
I mean, I really wanted to see the Muradin personally for the fact that we've seen Honko in the past. He's played that Haymaker style, which is just so exciting. It's all about displacement, and then with the idea of Tracer, you punch them back into Narnia and say, here's a present.
Didn't he say only Haymaker? It was only Haymaker,
He said only
and then
Haymaker.
he said,
That's
like,
correct.
every time, only Haymaker.
Isn't this a very interesting statement from Tempest to start off a game 2 draft this early on in the tournament saying, actually, we're able to adapt on a whim?
It very much is a bold statement, but also if you look at the past of Tempest, they ban to their opponents in every single series on the maps. They have the least predictable map bans of everyone within their region. They seem to rely on that adaptability within their own region. So immediately I go, I'm not so surprised at the fact that they're doing it within their hero picks within the series. Also, to highlight the fact that Lieutenant Morales Tracer is a very common pairing for teams like MVP Black. So I think they're just, going back to the South Korean roots there and taking a bit of the notes out of MVP Black's page.
I like the fact that they've gone for the Muradin here on Dignitas. The only thing I'm really questioning is the Dahaka. I would have personally preferred Sonya in that top lane and more likely the Brightwing to try and shut down this Tracer, because I say the pick potential really was the biggest factor for me personally, was Sign able to find those kills and allow them to try and snowball for that eventual keep into core push.
So Sonya makes sense if you are wanting to win that lane and dominate it, but what they've done here with the Dahaka pick is, one, they've put in Zillion, a character that he is impressive on, and 2, they've given themselves the ability to dive a Morales. Now you have that flank that's available for you to jump into that back line, have a Dahaka flame on the side. If you can get a Tracer who is trying to be in your back line to come back and help your Morales, you are in a spot where you are already winning the team fight.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Greymane is going to be removed. Not surprised to see Tempest pull away from that. I mean, maybe a little bit now, actually, considering that they still have the opportunity to pick that up for themselves in this next rotation. But their draft overall, with the Lieutenant Morales and Tracer, you know that they're skirmish focused. They pulled very heavily away from what we saw in their first 3 picks in the first game. So how are they going to be able to make up for that in their other roles is really what I'm looking for in this 3-4 from them.
Do you like the ETC ban? I'm thinking the ETC ban, not necessarily a mistake, but I feel like we've seen it in the past. You have the Muradin, you had the Dahaka, you can shut it down so easily with the Stormbolt, with the Isolation, so you're a non-factor. I mean, it sounds like a broken record, but I'm just sort of harping on that idea of Sonya. If Dahaka burrows in, Sonya punishes top.
Against a region like Korea as well, I think it is even kind of worsened by the fact that they have some of the best Tyrael play in the world. Yeah. It synergizes with the Tracer to be able to dive the backline. He's not too poor as that solo laner that we've been considering. It's not as effective as Dahaka by any means, but it is very, very scary. And it synergizes, again, with that Rhaegar. But we do see the commitment to the Sonya.
I do think the ETC has gotten a little bit better in the Muradin matchup, because Muradin is now being used aggressively with the heavy impact, trying to force fights, and if you fail that, Muradin has been displayed a couple times in this tournament to have a hard time retreating away from the fight, so an ETC can chase that down. So I don't mind the ban, but I think I agree with you. I'd love to see the Tyrael ban or something more Korean-based. Rhaegar and Sonya will be the pickup here for Tempest, so the Sonya we were talking about earlier, now grabbed.
Got to find what is Dignitas going to synergize here with that Tassadar, or do they go with the standard Vala after the Greymane being removed? It looks like that's going to be the case. No surprise there. And who is the main support? With Rhaegar taken away, that's the biggest avenue with wave clear. So ultimately, it's just up to whatever Bakery really wants to pick up for himself.
Uther used to be the main go-to whenever they would run Tassadar, but they did mention in the past that they have altered the supports a lot.
I think it might be a Brightwing, but I don't like the Brightwing as much. It synergizes it, or it helps with dealing with Tracer and Sonya, but I do feel like it's going to struggle here with the large amount of damage output, and more importantly, it's vulnerable to the dive that I'm assuming comes out of that Tyrael.
Ooh.
Like this a lot more.
I had the idea of a Karazim, but I was wondering if you even just go for the Oriole and just dominate that bottom lane and say, look, there's no way you can try and contest this. Karazim looks for the more sort of skirmishy base, and it really promotes the idea that Dahaka wants to brush talk in and force those fights.
To have Karazim to dive onto the Tracer and apply that pressure, though, and having the opportunity to go into Divine Palm, and now synergizing with the Tassadar double support, is a very different game here for Dignitas in the composition compared to the Tracer comp we saw out of Tempest in the last.
Commitment. They can get onto a target and they can eliminate it. That is for sure here, especially post 16 with the wave 100 fists coming in from the Karazim. Final pickup though for Tempest. Need more front line.
It's Arthas or Tyrael is the two things that stand out to me the most for them. Arthas to be able to slow everything down, enable the long sustained fights. He synergizes pretty well with the peel on top of Lieutenant Morales, but Tyrael is always my go-to whenever I see a high mobility hero to be able to synergize with him and having that lightning bond opportunity, put him out there, getting the damage, they back out and commit to the 4-man and the wave clear with the Johanna.
Tempest was something that we don't know here as they continue to move into Johanna. They are a team that seems to be going straight to it when they get the chance.
I mean, as Dredd said, it still has power on Dragonshire, right, for that 4-man, so it's still a good choice.
It very much is, and if you look at the fact that they have a pretty solid solo laner already within their composition, trying to make sure you put a bit more emphasis into your 4-man, which is going to have the Tracer. She has 0 wave clear until post 13, so it's just like going, well, if we know we're going to do well up on top, make sure we just don't become too big of a problem on bottom, and we always have kill potential because we have ourselves a Tracer.
The only thing with Johanna that I'm always against is it kind of feels like a poor man's Arthas to me. I like the idea that you bring some slowing potential to amplify what Rhaegar already brings with his Earthbind Totem, gives you more sticking power with the Sonya, for example. But, you know, I always feel, why would you go Johanna if you can go Arthas unless you desperately need that wave cliff action?
Don't forget about Ironskin. The ability to actually get through that Murd and the Stormbolt coming in. That's why you go for the Johanna over the Arthas. You have the ability to deal with CC in your own way.
I feel like there's a 80-90% chance it's Palm here for Bakery, and we don't really get to see that much anymore. It used to be a mainstay. It's actually what someone like Bakery built his name on here. So if there's anything for them to try and get them back in against Tempest, surely that has to be a factor here going up against a Tracer who wants to blow someone up with the Sonya to try and kill someone in the backline, right?
I would suggest a Palm coming out from Bakery here in this composition, just because, again, the major win condition for Tempest is going to be that pulse bomb, trying to get the dive. And then I want to highlight that I think Bakery has a bigger responsibility, though, than saving people. I think that's, I mean, every support's job, his job is to make sure that Tracer isn't a problem. She doesn't have the same, or Lieutenant Morales. They can't be sticking together. And he has enough single target damage to where he should be able to zone one of them out, say, this is not going to be a thing, and not let Tracer, you know, get the pew-pew.
I mean, realistically, where is Sign looking to go with this Tracer Pulse Bomb? You're not going to kill Tesla because he can dimensional shift. Muradin is innately beefy with Avatar and Healing Static later on in this game. You've got Dahaka that can just brush talk or burrow, do whatever he needs to get out of harm's way to prevent that threat. Vala really is that go-to, and as soon as Gloom gets unlocked, if that's the choice we see Snitch go towards, that really is the go-to, right? So the Palm can have a big factor in this game.
Trixler, can you tell me why those percentages are a little bit lopsided?
It seems that Dignitas has a few fans up in the mix here.
One or two,
you know. They're definitely cheering for them. I mean, why not, man? Dignitas has been known as a Korean Slayers. Game 1, before the core rush, things were going pretty well for them.
Don't forget, you can continue to vote over on Twitter as well with the hashtags, as you just saw on screen. Make sure to hashtag HGC as well as @Heroes Esports. It's time now to head over to our commentary team for game number 2 between Team Dignitas and Tempest.
Tempest once again taking Tracer, this time a deny from the potential Tracer Tassadar of Team Dignitas, but this time Dignitas seems like they have even more tools to deal with it.
They have more tools, they have a bit more firepower, I'd say, with this composition. I don't know if it's going to have the effectiveness they want it to. We saw basically almost an identical comp just moments ago in a dramatic game. We'll see what tricks they got this game, though. It's a very different battleground with Dragonshire.
And Bakery returning to Karazim. It's been a little bit. Let's get this game going. Don't forget, Team Dignitas lost game 1, but so too did Roll20 to Red Cannons in the last series. Plenty of time for Team Dignitas to make it up, to get back in this series, to tie it up and take us to game 3. We're headed into Dragonshire for game number 1.
It's no different here as Tempest obviously up 1-0, and we will see JPL, of course, on the Murden. Not the ETC this time. I think the Murden suits him a little better. And, you know, right now, it's going to be all about Snitch on that carry hero on Vala. I analyzed several of his games. It's a very interesting play style as he does it slightly different than some of the other EU brethren there, as well as NA. Really going to have a lot of focus on his play this game.
For me, I'm looking at, of course, the Tracer from Sign. There was some questions about why we're seeing so much Johanna from Tempest. Hankono really does feel comfortable on Johanna. I would argue it's his most comfortable warrior. Hankono doesn't always play warrior for this team. Sign is traditionally the main warrior, but Tempest recently has gone through some role swaps and are almost taking it to a Gale Force esports approach. There are 4 flexes and a support. But they've always been doing that with Tracer, especially because Sign is such a capable Tracer player. And so for them making sure that they have Johanna, who is going to supplement them in wave clear just like they did last time, and who also will have that self-cleanse of Iron Skin so that she can try to tank a lot of the damage, to tank the stuns of Muradin, and then get back, like Trixler mentioned.
You make a really good point about their flexibility. It's something they even talked about in their video as well, as how they feel that their hero pools are kind of what makes them who they are. I think sometimes, though, maybe you kind of are not as well practiced on some of the intricacies, and sometimes there can be minor slip-ups, and on a big stage, those will really be glaring holes if that happens, but so far so good as Tempest here, game 2.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Things like seeing H82 play Tychus in their last match of the playoffs, I wasn't as big of a fan, but that's kind of just me liking H82 on Melee, so I'm really excited to see that he's the one playing Sonya. Both Lockdown and H82 can play those melees, and we were seeing some more of Lockdown play, but here, Lockdown will be the assistance, the pocket support for Sign, who is playing Tracer, and then in the top, Rhaegar joining up with Sonya against the Dahaka.
Boy, that jump in there by Bakery is indicative, I think, what will be seen as the game goes on, especially 16. You know, they don't have a ton of reason for the cleansing touch at 16. Instead, we might see a little bit of fist action coming out, getting some burst damage out from Bakery late game. We know he is very active when he's on Kerosene.
Yeah, and that is something that has been done against Tracers for a long time. When you look at the Korean region, Merryday was playing a lot of Kerosene before he retired on things like Battlefield of Eternity, not just because of the damage that he can do versus Immortals, but because after you force a recall of Tracer, a lot of times there's not heroes who feel safe going in after her, and so she escapes with a sliver of health that's just ridiculous. But then you get somebody like a Kerosene who has dashes, who can dash back to his either his ally or his teammates, and he's the one who could go in after you see the recall, just like Sign has put on show for us.
Oh yeah, that's the Bakery we like to see. It's, you know, it's kind of the unheralded support of Kerosene, and you know, oftentimes people kind of look at him as that secondary support, but you know, there are a few stellar players out there that will, I mean, yes, you have the Tassadar, but in terms of true supports, having Bakery on that is a pretty surefire thing, but against Tempest, we'll see.
Tempest traditionally tends to lose this map in the laning phase, especially when they're playing versus MVP Black, so it shouldn't be too uncomfortable of a position. And they're playing fine. They're taking back what they need to do. They're making Hankono get aggressive in the mid when they absolutely need to. But this does maybe make it so that Hankono could get lost here as JPL was rotating in, forcing the Iron Skin, and that will do just the same. Just both teams making sure that neither team gets an early Dragon Knight and the early structure damage, because once you start taking down these towers, keeping control of the lanes gets a whole lot harder, J-Howe.
Well, I don't know about that Pulse Bomb. But either way, it does get a lot harder, especially when the other team can more easily get those siege camps. So the bottom lane obviously got a bit tougher, as we see the top lane was being dominated there on the side of Tempest, but now it is a much tougher defense because Tracer, single target damage. Morales, well, it's not much damage, period.
Backdoor of the Shrine in the top not only is going to take that away and try to take it away so that Dignitas can regain control of the Shrines, but it pulls back the aggression that Rhaegar and Sonya had in the top lane, doing some damage to the towers. I wanted to draw attention earlier to this, but Tempest has a lot of really good murking heroes, where it's sort of limited for Team Dignitas, although Dignitas does have the Monster Hunter Vala, so she can do a lot of effective damage too. But Dignitas recognized that Rhaegar had to go somewhere from the top lane. They come in and they're trying for an invade.
Oh, they're going in there. We see level 7, that heavy impact, almost having an impact, and Bakery trying to finish the job there onto Hyde, unable to do so. And in the middle of that, the camp was returned. Bakery likely, oh, excuse me, we've got a shield there. Parting gets so close there. Bakery, lucky to be alive.
Yeah, Bakery wrote return to sender on that gift and sent it right back. He lives, but those parting gifts, those pulse bombs will get even scarier once we get to 10 and Quantum Spike is picked up for Tempest. Because that is when you get the percent health damage. But things like Palm, that's going to be crucial. Drag, hits, pulling H82 in. The minions are there. JPL wants to go in. They're going for the attack.
He wants to go in. He's got a stun. Nice cleanse coming out from Hyde. I think the Dwarf Toss had it landed there onto Rhaegar. They might have had a different primary target. Bakery defending here mid, making sure that no Dragonite is picked up for the moment, as we can see on the minimap, and rotating down. Snitch trying to control that, but very respectable of that Tracer that's looming near.
Yeah, the setup for Tempest has been really nice here, that Vala is scared to go in because of the Tracer and the threat of the Pulse Bomb. And then the rest of the members are stuck here in the mid dealing with that. But finally, Zayla is going to get to the top, and with the Psionic Storm, Dignitas ensures that Tempest don't get the Dragonite yet.
It's a back and forth battle. Snitch taking that Pulse Bomb, surviving through that, but Sign clearly showing that he is no slouch on Tracer. There's a reason they flex so hard. We've got the dive in. They're trying to get on that. Right now, we see Dahaka coming in on the side as well. See if they can get the lockdown onto lockdown. That's going to be the first kill of the game as Morales goes down.
Focus Morales was the key to victory there, and they're continuing the focus in as they take down Tracer. Team Dignitas getting aggressive in game two, recognizing that they need the victory in this game to make sure they can go to game 3 and still go through with flying colors to the winner's match of the group stage.
Sonya, of course, reclaim the top. Zelia is going to go ahead and dip on up there. Level 10 is a threat, so we might see the channel. I don't know if they'll be able to get the Dragonite right now. If we look at the mini-map, it looks like Dignitas is in position to grab the first DK of the game. We'll see if they can successfully do so as JPL holds that bottom.
H82 is going to go in with the shield, but pay for it dearly. Are going with the spear, and that was the first of many force walls that will be so annoying for Tempest. Guys, Mene is ridiculous with his force walls. He's aggressive at dimensional shifts. We saw it before. He's going to go in and have the force walls behind, but similarly being aggressive is Tempest, forcing the palm, and then they'll get Mene back at least for now.
I don't know if I've ever seen a Vala health bar delete so quick off just a Tracer. That stim drone went out, and Tracer's like, we saw the pew-pew from Dread at the desk. I'm sure we got a few more pews in there in that few seconds, but the palm was on point.
There'll be a lot more pews when you get Sleight of Hand at 16 and reduce the time it takes to reload from that. Signed.
Oh, it's going to get him.
Jimmy!
Oh, he's still not going to live, but that's a play. That's a play.
Flashy either way, my dude. Flashy either way.
Oh, that looks so good, too.
I know.
It's almost like, you deserve to die, but it would have looked so good if he had lived.
So what's the damage being dealt from Dignitas? Because this whole time, the Dragon Knight has just been hanging out, taking down towers everywhere. Dignitas subscribing to the approach of getting more experience from those. Not necessarily pushing too hard in either lane, but like we said before, trying to make sure that they're burning down the ammo, taking down structures systematically, so that they can keep back Tempest. Theoretically, it should get easier and easier now every time for Team Dignitas to be able to get Dragon Knights because of the damage they've done structurally.
Yeah, the structure damage, giving that lane control is such a huge point that you made there. We'll see if they can play around it. They also have that global, which we saw had a big impact to that team fight when they got the first 2 picks in the bottom. Now they see themselves up 4-0. They've got a full level lead approaching 13. This is Dignitas' game to see if they can grab a firm hold of it. But Tempest, of course, no slouch when it comes to these team fights. We'll see if they can answer.
Team Dignitas, as the Dragon Knight fell, went to get a double camp setup. Tempest doing what they can to do the same, but Dignitas in the faster rotations are even going to be able to get the bruisers in bottom, which should set them up quite nicely to try to take out that fort that they did a lot of damage to. The split push while the Dragon Knight headed up to the top. They do need to clear out the Giants of Tempest. Tempest recognizing that they're going to need a lot more force here. They'll leave Sonya up the top. They know this fort is most certainly going to go down, but they will at least be set up here for as much defense as they can. But will it cost them is the question.
Boy, it might cost them. We'll see if they can get the tongue on. They do get the tongue. Safeguard's going to be there for the moment. Hankono, however, will not go down. Good recognition. The shield's going to keep Snitch more than healthy, and Dignitas continue with the approach. And you talked about the double camp push and bottom, Gilly. We've got ourselves a night camp, siege camp. This keep wall is going to be under heavy pressure.
Yeah, that was just such a big push, and Tempest had decided already to put 2 members in the top lane and get that fort there, which will nullify that a bit. But of course, Team Dignitas is going to get more out of this because they still had the camps up and healthy so that they could get 2 towers in front of the keep, which is a far juicier target for these later game Dragon Knights. Top lane, at least, make sure that Tempest can have a footing, a stronghold somewhere on this battleground, but it's rough to lose so much in the bottom lane, especially since that's so often where you end up losing the game on Dragonshire.
Lots of camps that push down there. You know, something that stood out to me, you know, what Skimmy was talking about on the desk was about how Pulse Bomb might be against a bunch of unkillable heroes here when we talk about Tassadar, Muradin, and of course Dahaka. Now we see Spell Shield was also picked up by Karazim, prioritizing that palm for the Vala, making sure that you minimize the risk with that setup. So I really like the calls here, but we've got ourselves a fight on here.
Force Wall's so good. Drag coming in, Rain of Vengeance behind that. Hyde running one way, the rest of the team running the other, drawing the aggro, the ire of Team Dignitas, knowing that he'll go down. Top being held, bottom pushed out this entire time by H82 so that he can get the shrine, but in losing Rhaegar and having that power play for Team Dignitas, Tempest are going to have to try to figure out how much they can do here because they're almost against the 16 of Team Dignitas, and they don't have Rhaegar for a little bit longer.
16, obviously scary when you look at this composition, especially Karazim and what the threat that he brings. Will it be the way of the fist coming in here? He's holding that talent. I imagine that when he's ready to pull the trigger, it's coming, and I'm looking for it to come in. But, Gilly, we've got ourselves another DK. 16-tier advantage in Dignitas pushing against Tempest.
I just love the Force Wall pickup here for Mene. It is fairly common for him to get, but against Johanna, who has the self-cleanse of Iron Skin, cleanse isn't going to save you when you have to run all the way up and around the wall, and that burns that time of that and the shielding. And so it's still a setup for Drag to come in after the fact and get a kill on Honkono. Kills greatly in favor of Team Dignitas, experience so much in favor, and they are taking the push to the bottom lane to where they took down the towers, trying to get a keep.
Honkono, what are you doing there? Muradin has spotted you. Iron Skin is out. JPL putting all kinds of pressure, but we got H82 on the backside. He's going to get caught by the Rain of Vengeance, and now we've got JPL going in. Honkono, no Iron Skin available here. He's going to be locked down for the moment.
Locked down. Ancestral Healing doesn't hit. They take him down. No Johanna for 33 seconds now in the whole time. Zalia wailing away at the keep as he steps on forward, taking the damage from the team. Sign dives in, but the shielding is there, and Snitch stays alive to the Pulse Bomb.
He stays alive. They're going towards the core. I don't think they can do a whole lot here. Zalia, this isn't game number 1, but he might want to hop on out of there. He is on Dahaka. He's going to walk away. Bakery and team on the retreat. 3-level lead. They got the first keep of the game.
Now, Bakery's level 16 choice does show us that he's far more focused on making sure that he keeps Vala alive. This is a protect the snitch composition if I've ever seen one. It's not about trying to go in and be the hero, the one who gets the tracer kills. He's still my hero, J-Howe.
He went cleansing touch, man. That's not damage. That's saving somebody. I want to see.
All they have to do is keep Vala alive. They must keep Vala alive.
They're doing a really good job so far as they're up 7 kills to 0, Gilly.
They are, and they're still in the lead with the 16. Tempest heads straight to their bruisers to be able to push that lane out against the bruisers of Team Dignitas. But Dignitas, once again, having the faster rotations through from one to the other. They have a double camp. Where do they go along with that? There's only one fort remaining. And why not just make it easier and easier for you to get a Dragon Knight and close out the game maybe with your Storm Talents at 20?
And it's almost a weird position to be in because there's a very debatable macro-style strategy of making sure you take this top fort just for that lane control. It makes it, especially when you have the global. I know Dreadnought's touched upon this. It's a much deeper topic. But getting that fort down, controlling both the top lane, it's kind of like that mid to late game. You want to try and focus that just because of lane and vision control. That way, since they already have the keep down bottom, it makes it so much easier to control the shrines and close out the game. We're going to see that push up top, but down at the bottom, Tempest trying to respond with a push of their own now that they've hit 16.
A very disciplined game from Team Dignitas, which seems to be the theme of the team throughout Part 2. Team Dignitas took second place at Blizzcon 2015, tied for third in 2016, and Tempest barely made it here, had the fight of their lives versus Mighty, where all but Sign went down and he was able to take out the core with some mercenary camps. Tempest wanting another fight here against Team Dignitas while they're on the same talent tier. Team Dignitas just won't give it to them.
The value of the cleansing touch coming in there, as we saw in Johanna and team, trying to engage there. 19.5, however, Gilly, for Dignitas, as we see that top lane pushed out, vision control all the way top, all the way bottom. They're going to try and wall it out. Dahaka looking for that. I don't think they go here, but they've got another target in mind as Tracer gets deleted.
think we'll call that one a super deletion and leave it at that. Dragon Knight achieved. Team Dignitas so dangerously close to 20 as Tempest moved back to defend. There's no keep in the bottom lane, and that is exactly where Team Dignitas will make their stand.
They're going in. They recognize they don't have to take out that mid wall, take out any more damage of that DK, because there should be minions spawning here momentarily. That will give them the 20 that they need. They hold on for a moment. They've got 50, almost a minute left on this DK. They're looking for a fight. H82 gets booted away, but they turn their eyes towards the core.
There is Dignitas on the core. Bakery moving around to the side. He can do a lot of damage. There's snitches on it too. And the Dragon Knight taking it down one chunk at a time. Team Dignitas ties up the series 1-1 as we head into game 3.
That was clean together. That was a lean game. A wonderful draft as well on the side of Dignitas. No shenanigans this game that kind of bit them in game 1, but that puts us to a decisive game 3 coming soon.
I still have to echo what I said before. It was curious to see Team Tempest pick Dragonshire as this battleground, as the choice. It just doesn't really feel like it suits them. You see them losing out against teams in the Korean region a lot because they are more of a team fight focused team, but I also wonder maybe if the Tassadar first pick was kind of a trap from Dignitas that they set, knowing that Tempest likes to deny Tracer from teams who first picked Tassadar. We'll have to check in with the analyst desk now, but we'll see you for game 3 shortly.
Thank you very much, guys. Indeed, was game number 1 merely Team Dignitas as the Korean Slayers sharpening their blade with the whetstone? Game number 2 would maybe say so, because that was pretty sturdy there, Trix. Let's start things.
Game much better there for Dignitas. The control that they are known for was shown on full display there, and their ability to secure a couple of kills. But I have to shout out Manny there on the Tassadar. Force wall being utilized multiple times to try and stop the recall back from Tracer so his team could move forward, and that put a lot of pressure on Tempest and actually secured a few of the kills that we saw.
I think there is something to bring up that, Gilly was highlighting, is that this is a map that Tempest picks consistently, but they really do struggle within their own region. One of the worst records that they have, especially considering the sample size of the map. So it is strange that they ended up picking it. And again, the first 3 picks on Infernal Shrines, wave clear, wave clear, wave clear. First 2 of this one, very much team fight, skirmish focus. And it just felt like their priority, according to the map, it just kind of felt a little bit off.
It kind of got to the point where we actually saw the adaptation from Johanna to go not for the movement speed, but for the actual wave clear cooldown at level 4. So it was a case of going for that, going for the Burning Rage, saying that's going to be a response to try and bounce between mid and bot, and try and deal with the Dahaka split push, but not a single kill achieved. All the control in the world for Dignitas, and they dictated that game with a perfect.
All right, well, we're going to go to a short break here before we get into game number 3. When we return, Team Dignitas at the moment steals back a game here as we're in a 1-1 situation. We're going to get into game 3 in just a few moments' time.
2017 Heroes Global Championship Finals are brought to you in part by Republic of Gamers, Intel, T-Mobile, and NVIDIA. Once a world champion professional gamer, Hana Song, better known as Diva, joined South Korea's mecha unit to pilot one of their mechs against a colossal Omnic threat. Diva's elite skills and fiercely competitive spirit make her extremely effective in her combat operations. Whether fighting Omnics near the East China Sea or demons in the Nexus, Diva never backs down and always plays to win. Diva is a tenacious warrior who bullies her enemies and forces them to retreat. Diva's trait has 2 states, mech mode and pilot mode. While in mech mode, she has access to all of her abilities and can attack while moving. Her attacks also deal damage to all enemies in front of her. In pilot mode, Diva becomes a fragile but deadly ranged attacker. She deals high damage to single targets, but can no longer attack while moving. Her attacks also charge up her ability to call down a new mech. Boosters are Diva's primary form of mobility in mech mode. Activating this ability greatly increases her movement speed for a short duration. Enemies that she runs into while boosters are engaged are damaged and knocked back. Boosters can be cancelled early by hitting the ability's key a second time. D.Va's next mech mode ability is Defense Matrix. When activated, D.Va projects a field that significantly reduces the damage of enemy heroes. D.Va can move while Defense Matrix is active, but she is locked facing in its initial direction. Like boosters, Defense Matrix can also be cancelled. Self-Destruct is D.Va's E ability. Activating it causes D.Va to bail out of her mech, which then explodes a short time later, dealing damage and knocking back enemies in a large area. This ability has no cooldown, but can only be used when it has been fully charged. D.Va gains self-destruct charges by taking damage and dealing damage. When in pilot mode, D.Va's E ability is Call Mech, which allows her to re-enter mech mode once it is fully charged. If her mech is destroyed by an enemy, this ability starts a long cooldown that is reduced by D.Va's basic attacks. Call Mech is immediately available after D.Va's mech self-destructs. D.Va's first heroic ability is Bunny Hop. When activated, D.Va's mech becomes unstoppable while dealing damage and slowing all nearby enemies. Bunny Hop can only be used in mech mode. Big Shot offers D.Va a powerful attack while in pilot mode. She shoots a laser in a straight line, dealing damage to all enemies in its path. This ability has a very short cooldown, and it significantly reduces Call Mech's cooldown for each enemy hero it hits. D.Va has two separate and distinct playstyles that depend on whether she's in her mech. While in mech mode, D.Va has high health and mobility, allowing her to dive in and bully the enemy team. In pilot mode, D.Va deals high damage, but has low health. Attacking enemies will get her back into her mech sooner, but also puts her at risk of dying. D.Va automatically enters pilot mode when her mech is destroyed, allowing her a chance to escape. Keep in mind that this is D.Va's only form of survivability. Because she can't use mounts in mech mode, D.Va relies on boosters to grant her the mobility she needs to quickly get into position. Boosters is a versatile ability which can be used to traverse the battlefield, engage or escape from enemies, and chase down fleeing enemies to finish them off. Boosters has a short cooldown, so don't hesitate to use it when needed. Self-destruct forces enemies to either evacuate a large area or suffer terrible damage. Launch her mech forward by using self-destruct while boosters is active to turn it into a devastating ranged attack. D.Va can also cancel boosters during self-destruct's countdown, allowing her to place her mech precisely where she wants it. When playing against D.Va, use roots and stuns to prevent her from escaping as you destroy her mech and secure a kill. Destroying D.Va's mech only grants half the normal experience, so play aggressively in mech mode and stay alive in pilot mode to deny XP to the enemy team. Using Defense Matrix forces the enemy team to choose between dealing significantly reduced damage or moving out of position. D.Va can't attack or use any other abilities while Defense Matrix is active, but she can move to follow her opponents and keep them within its area of effect. Bunny Hop is best used to initiate a team fight after boosting into the middle of the enemy team. Because it slows enemies while dealing damage, it can also be used to catch and eliminate escaping foes. Big Shot gives D.Va a long-range, high-damage poke in pilot mode that can also get her back into her mech much faster. Though it can't be used in mech mode, it can be a deadly surprise to enemies who try to capitalize on her vulnerability. D.Va is an in-your-face disruptor who fearlessly charges into battle and does whatever it takes for the win.
Game number 3 about to commence here between Dignitas and Tempest as we get all the way through this series. Wouldn't have it any other way. And so far, so many best of 3s actually going the whole hog here in the group stage, which goes to show that it is a very fierce competition here for the HGC 2017 finals. To my left-hand side, Skimmy. Wade. I actually said Wade. That's
weird. That's spicy.
And then we have Trixler down at the very end. Gentlemen, we now have a series on our hands here. Dignitas. Well, actually, we can in fact find out where we're going to go before I ask you any questions, because our battleground is going to be revealed as we go to Cursed Hollow. Wade, you were right on the money.
Yeah, we projected that we thought that Tempest would go to BOE if it was their map selection, or if it was Dignitas going to Curse. This is the #1 map that Dignitas has selected consistently throughout all of phase number 2, so it is no surprise there that they're going to pick that here for Tempest.
Exciting for me now. We get to see our teams be at full capacity, if you will. In game number 1, you could say maybe a misplay is why Dig lost. Game number 2, Dig got what they wanted. We saw some back and forth, but good control overall. And now moving into game number 3 is where the fireworks should be coming out.
All right, let's get into it then. Game 3, the draft begins as we have Dignitas going up against Tempest. Skimmy, you were part of that deduction as Cursed Hollow came into play.
Yeah, it's just risky, right? Because this series was touted to be one of the games to watch.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, given that they're putting the risk onto, hey, you pick whatever map you want, we're quite comfortable just to go for that first pick, what their eyes are on. I'm wondering if that Tesla being such a focal point is the direction they want to go. Or in this case, the Mirrodin, I was wondering otherwise it could have been the Tyrael, but they're going to open up with the Dwarf Man himself.
I believe that's the highest priority. Obviously, it's the highest you can have, but we have not seen a Mirrodin that high or even close to that position. I think the farthest he's ended up making up is the 2, 3, and first pick selection.
And I mean, teams are saying going into this tournament, yeah, he's extremely strong. He's definitely not going to get past that first rotation of picks. But potentially, as the tournament's progressed from days 1 to now 3, teams are thinking, actually, we can value this as a first pick.
Wow, Tassadar Tracer still coming through, even on a map like Cursed.
Yeah, coming out here on the side. You're going to see it from Snitch finally. Wow, Tracer, Tassadar, this high up in all 3 series. We know she's strong, but dang, man, very important for both of our teams here. How will Tempest intend to handle Tracer and Tassadar coming their way?
Sanctification is a tool that we have seen used, but Tyrael is yet to show himself, and with the high Mirrodin, I don't necessarily think that maybe Tempest would go into that direction. I do really like the fact that the Abathar banned out. It makes it to where you are suddenly not considering that kind of Deathball Mirrodin plus, a follow-up to having a really high pressure onto the Tracer here. Other than that, though, I don't see anything that I immediately want here from Tempest. I'm just want to see if they're going to stick to, I guess I was going to say stick to the same strategy they had in the last game, but ultimately with the Tassadar Tracer taken out, are they going to focus more on like skirmish or more onto the macro? And it looks like they don't commit either direction, keeping it vague still here with the picks.
I was just going to say, Orioles are very comfortable here on their side, right? And this is a composition which then all revolves around, typically speaking, the Valo. We discussed it last time, how that matchup could work in favor of the Gloom to try and negate at least the standard portion of what Pulse Bomb brings to the table. But it feels like this Tracer Tesla composition really is defining this series for the most part.
That it is here. At least you have Aegis for that Pulse Bomb that comes your way. Vala can be on the bottom lane with no support, and they can really control that side of the map. So there is skirmish potential, but you're right. The draft is very open-ended for Tempest, and they'll be able to react to what Dignitas grabs here. They should be grabbing another support, it feels like here, just to make sure that they have what they would like, because obviously Tempest would like to support themselves, and that they want to make sure that they're stacked up in that regard. But I'm more worried / interested in what tank they'll be moving into.
With the Tassadar Tracer, you almost always are going to want, again, the mobility to follow up with her, help her out. And I think ETC has been such a high priority hero, and the fact that we see the Mirrodin picked up as the first pick, ETC has not been touched for this, or even banned out so far. Yeah. I don't look at that as a must pick here for Team Dignitas. I'm just more really appreciating the kind of adjustments that both of these teams are making throughout this draft.
Do Dignitas just go into the little creative box of tools and go, hey, we'll just pick a Tyrael and deny it away from you? They're leaving it open-ended.
Yeah, leaving it open-ended and also having the global on a map like Cursed really helps out with those tributes and how you can make it happen. The biggest thing about those tributes and the advantage you can get with that global is you need to have an effective 4-man. Tassadar, Tracer, Rhaegar, if really any hero, as long as it has a stun of some form, probably is going to be, or at least some kind of crowd control, is very, very threatening into the 4. You can stall up very effectively here. So Tempest, they have to be a bit concerned on how these tributes are going to play out.
I'd actually be a fan of the Li Ming in this rotation. Gives them some more poke. Gives them the ability to then find that one shot. Potentially they can then predict where that recall will go for Tracer. Take that hero right out of contention before that heal can come across. And would give them some displacement. As you'd imagine, it'd be Wave of Force to try and give them some protection, try and find a way to split the team apart, kind of like how Brightwing does with the Emerald Win.
Isn't something like a heavier frontline, though, something that they would probably favor here?
If they wanted more damage, it would go more melee heavy for sure, something that gives you a little bit more engagement. It's kind of annoying for the other frontline to deal with, especially with that Tracer. It's going to be a Karazim, which we saw on display in game number 2 against Tracer. It wasn't too shabby. Tempest will have their own run-of-the-mill with that Karazim, and Arthas will be the final pickup.
The Arthas here, I'm a little bit... if he manages to get a flank, I think he's going to be really, really scary and very, very effective, but it's very important that they get that flank. You can't approach it left to right here. I think if you're not going to go with somebody else with another gap closer, they have the damage in the Arthas, but he needs to make sure he makes up for it within his positioning and how he approaches these fights. Otherwise, Tracer will still be a very big problem. Also, if you go for those kind of flanks and Tassadar is able to get the reveal, Tracer will be tracking you down and making sure you're going to have a bad time.
Do you think it's too bad, though, with the Muradin? The heavy impact into an engage followed up into a Howling Blast on Rhaegar?
It's good
doable.
enough. Yeah, it is doable, but I do think the success for the actual team fight, if they are not blowing them up in that one-shot, one-kill, the Arthas needs to be flanking. Otherwise, we'll see Dignitas kite back, recollect, and be able to initiate in a fight that they want with this amount of sustain and the mobility that they have overall. Especially ETC to be able to peel it out on top of it. It's another great way to be able to get that kind of kite and escape that Dignitas is looking for.
But when you look at our Karazims from games to game, this one's far more likely to be seven-sided, and ETC has to be very careful in that situation.
For the point I wanted to discuss personally, because I said, on Kono, I always go Haymaker, right? So you're looking at the displacement factor of, Arthas has to flank, but same with Muradin, he can flank as well, right? So Crowd Surfer or not, I can try and emulate that with that increased range on your Dwarven Toss. So it's all about trying to isolate these members. I'm going to kill you before Tracer can target our backline.
If the Haymaker is picked up, it will be Hunkano to do so, and it can happen. It's much easier to pull off now on the new Muradin. The heavy impact, you step forward, drop the Stormbolt, and then drop down the Haymaker. It used to be you have to jump behind, maybe hit Stormbolt, try to waddle around. It was a little bit difficult to pull off. It is much easier to put a target where you want them to be now with the new mix-up, so maybe we'll get our first Haymaker of the tournament.
I do see a situation, though, where Dignitas just keeps the Dahaka for the side pressure, keeps the split push. The tri-lane between Tempest is not going to be as effective as I think that they want it to be, and then that you see that long stall out I was talking about before. If we see Dignitas gain any experience, like three-quarter advantage over the first two tributes, I feel like the game will kind of get out of control, because Tempest has to be as a five-man group to be effective in this game, and Dahaka plus Tassadar Rhaegar's wave clear and the global factor is going to be really, really oppressive if they fall behind in Curse.
So then you'd be saying that then Dahaka will just be constantly split pushing, preventing ever like a dream 5v5 team fight, right? The only way that Tempest can really get into this one would be like the boss sort of steal, attempt to sort of skirmish around there.
Yeah, and the biggest thing you're relying on is an initiation then to make up for the Dahaka split pushing. How are you going to do that? Again, if you have Arthas for the Howling Blast, it's unlikely you're going to hit any of those, like a Tassadar or a Tracer. And then Muradin, he is a lot better than he was before, but it still is a bit of a risk.
All right, time to find out who's going to win, who is going to be able to move on to the winners match here in this full best of 3. Let's head over to the commentary team.
3 games, 3 Tracers, but this time it's Snitch who will be playing Tracer, zipping around the battlefield. What do you think? Who's got it?
It scares me a bit, I guess, that early the counter picks on the side of Tempest weren't what I thought they would be, so I think there's going to be counterplay on both sides. I think, of course, Zelia is going to be a big X factor here on the Dahaka, the global, so the side of Dignitas does intrigue me a bit more in terms of the battleground, so we'll see how it plays out.
You think we're going to have a mosh pit or a stage dive for just
I was thinking that.
Control?
I don't know. I'm trying to look. You have the potential Stormbolt if he's in position. You have Detainment Strike, Rain of Vengeance. We'll see if he is threatened by those. Maybe we'll wait and see if Rain of Vengeance picked up. Then we'll go. Gonna find out.
Well, let's get this thing started. We only have 1 game left to figure out if Team Dignitas or if Tempest will be joining Roll20 in the winners match of the group. It is such a big advantage to be able to go to that match. The loser of this will have to fight their way back and has no way of being the #1 seed getting out of the group. We're headed to Cursed Hollow for Game 3.
Excited to see what Dignitas can do here. Bakery transitioning over from Karazim to the dog known as Rhaegar. JPL is going to be rocking that ETC one more time. Mene saw some killer force walls last game, by the way. Going to be on Tassadar Snitch, as you said. Going to be on Tracer. And Zelia, of course, rounding it out with Dahaka.
Still very strange to me to see Mene playing a support, but he has adapted to the meta, the true flex, the true team player. In the red, Team Tempest. We'll have Lockdown playing Ariel, Honkono playing Muradin, and you know what that means. Vala, played by H82, Sign playing Arthas, and Hyde playing Karazim. So the flexing will be put to the test for Tempest, having H82, traditionally a melee player who became famous for his Artanis, playing the hyper carry of Vala.
Be particularly interesting. Use every bit of that shield snitch as he comes in there, eats a little bit of damage, gets some early damage in return onto that. You know, looking at the build, Skelly, we got a lot of single target damage. If you can get the lockdown onto that Tracer when she's flanking, we've got the perfect storm, we've got Hungry Arrow. There's a lot of damage potential to blow up an eager Tracer, to say the least.
Yeah, Snitch will have to watch out for that. Make sure the communication is good with Mene when the shielding is available, when the heals are available from Rhaegar.
You know what you got to say, right?
Only Haymaker?
No,
that's what I'm saying.
I need healing.
I need healing. There's no Genji in this game. What are you talking about, J-How?
Still Overwatch. That's a reach, but I'm going with it.
Ooh, well, Tempest were reaching. They got some damage done to Team Dignitas. But they didn't get any kills yet. No first blood, but it does give them some time, space created. There's the Tainment Strike from Lockdown. It's interesting to see Lockdown being the one to play the Ariel as the pulse bomb. The first pulse bomb goes down, recall goes back, but H82 lives.
I want to point out something, because Hyde just mounted up, and conveniently, he's riding a Tempest mount. If you guys are unfamiliar with the history, last summer and the DreamHack summer in the Global Championship, Tempest just so happened to be global champions. Hyde, part of that team.
Oh, what an interesting point there, J-How, because in fact, all three of the Korean teams here at HGC Finals are global champions. We had MVP Black from the spring, and then summer was Tempest, fall was, of course, Ballistics. So they all have those names to live up to, but they're a little bit different, all of them, and the rosters. Here we've got H82, and then Honkono is back from them. Sign, who was on MVP Black all of last year, joining up with Tempest, and it was slow goings for a while for Tempest to adapt to this roster, but they have been improving, getting closer and closer to the top two teams from the region all the time.
Oh, really good detainment strike there by Lockdown, getting the follow-up, and there's a little bit of that burst damage that I was talking about, using that Hungry Arrow build on Vala, forcing the recall. Sometimes you can just kind of blink away from that, but recognizing the burst damage potential, just kind of recall, and it kind of hinders you for 20-odd seconds at that point. And we'll see Snitch be a little less aggressive because of that.
Now, in case it seems kind of weird to you that you're seeing Karazim go and get a Merc camp, is something that Karazim can do, and that the Eastern region does quite a lot with having Karazim as a secondary support. Trying to use him not only for going and getting Merc camps, but even ganks and lane, as we've seen from Hyde, being very fluid in his motions, in his rotations, trying to see where he can get in and get some damage done on squishy targets.
We've got those Siege Giants that were picked up pushing that bot lane, and as you can see, Tassadar and Tracer stayed in that bot lane despite the curse being in that top mid. However, it was picked up by Dignitas.
Here comes the stock from Dahaka, heard from Tempest. So that'll be a free clear on the Giants. Nice for Dignitas not to take any further damage on the structures. Tempest completely fine with giving up that first tribute. We'll see how if that comes back to haunt them, right? At some point they will have to get aggressive because they allowed Team Dignitas to have that for free.
Aggressive comes at level 7 with this team, that heavy impact at 7, the repeating arrow. You got to expect Tempest will be contesting from here on out when this composition really starts to come online. We have the next tribute spawning here momentarily, bot left. That is on a little bit friendly side for Dignitas. We see Snitch eating a bit of damage there. See how Tempest approaches this as they are already in position, hiding in bush. See if they can get some stacks on that queue there for Honkono.
Yeah, even though the positioning does favor Team Dignitas, it is scary to give up 2 in a row when you're looking at level 10, but they might have to because Hyde has been hit. The power slide perfect. He nearly goes down in the pulse bomb, but not quite.
Not quite, but he's still in position. The parting gift going in. He manages to get off a heel right as Snitch goes in for the kill shot. Unable to confirm it. Hyde getting the channel for the moment. The face melt knocked back by JAPL is going to draw this out a little bit longer. We'll see if Tracer can build up another pulse bomb, or whether we'll see Dignitas just kind of idle by and maybe stay back and give this one up.
Tempest still continuing to channel. trying to stay spread out as they can, and they'll get the tribute. But watching the team group for things like Ariel heals, for Karazim heals, and going through choke points just makes me even more scared for the potential mosh pits of Team Dignitas. We theorized maybe they were going to try to have the double global for stage dive, but man, it just seems so good to be able to have mosh pit. But there are a lot of different ways for people to interrupt it. Rain of Vengeance would be one. Muradin can interrupt with Stormbolt. It just depends if Tempest wants, or if Team Dignitas feels like they can still land a mosh pit despite that.
You bring up some good points. The way that they're grouping it on Cursed Hollow, there are some really, really narrow choke points. We'll see how it goes. We have our third tribute spawning here, and so far we've seen it mostly uncontested in terms of a 5 versus 5. I'm not sure if we'll get it here. I think we got a little bit of action going on as Lockdown taking a lot of pressure there from Snitch, who's going to land the pulse. So I'm going to get the takedown, and H82 in a bad spot. He's going to go down as that confirms the kill. He might be rotating over for an early boss here.
And that was a fantastic rotation from Team Dignitas to bring into Hawkeye, have Snitch come in from the side, or Bakery come in from the side. They get the 2 kills, they'll go for the boss, they have a level lead, but Tempest at least gets a tribute. That's going to help them out somewhat, but now they need to make sure they can catch up with Team Dignitas on the race to level 10 and heroic abilities.
And I really wonder if Dignitas is going to try and make the double boss play with that 10-tier advantage that will inevitably be coming. But, you know, we will have that next tribute that will be spawning, see if that, you know, top, bottom, because it is on the new rotation, things like that. Dignitas, they're going to make a play. Let's see what they do. They're already rotating up hard. JPL staying bottom, which could signify that we might be getting a stage dive. He stays bottom, he soaks. Looks like they're going to play a little bit more cautiously. I don't know, Dahaka's rotating over. He has started the boss at least momentarily, or is zoning. He started it.
He started it. There's a tribute spawning that's sort of far away from that, but ETC is still down and around there. No stage dive, it is mosh pit. Dignitas just damaging on all fronts. They used the bruisers that they got to allow them to make the aggressive rotation to get the 2 kills, go back and get the boss, and then rejoin back up to take down towers. They're even working on a 4. They send Rhaegar back. Bakery picks up this tribute. Won't be a curse yet, but it does put them on curse point.
It does put them on curse point, and you got to imagine that Dignitas is going to be trying like hell to get 13 before that next one, have that talent tier advantage, which is why they pushed it on that 4, trying to get that structure damage, seeing how far they can take it before Tempest hit 10. They didn't quite get the fort, didn't quite get that edge, and we'll see what happens going into the next tribute, because the next tribute will be cursed for one of these teams.
Dignitas is like a clock right now as they are rotating it just everywhere they need to be at once. Force wall splits apart, Tempest pulse bomb hits, Rain of Vengeance hits a whole bunch, but out of that, we have the mosh pit, and Vola is pulled in the clutches of Dignitas, and she drops.
JPL eating shots from that fort there, and he's not able to survive as that's a 1-for-1 trade, and an unlikely 1-for-1 trade. It looks like they're looking for more Azalea. Taking damage, but he's got another tongue there. He's pulling Honkono back. Nice force wall going in as well, locking him in. That's not going to be enough to confirm the kill, though.
Keep your eyes on Honkono, because the only Haymaker Muradin has arrived on the scene of the HGC finals. There's no avatar to keep him safe, no third wind at level 1. This is full-on aggression, full-on aggro of Muradin from Honkono.
Really, I'm disappointed. It's not just only Haymaker, it's only Haymaker.
Oh, you're right. I didn't have the knock. That's on me. You're right.
All right, we've got a very even fight here, 12-11, no threat of 13 anytime soon. JPL's going to check the bush for the moment, and Snitch has a primary target as we see that H82 locked in from the force wall. We're going to have a hard reset here as these teams looking to fight. One of these will get the curse after this. See what they can do. Force wall lock in a few more members.
No mosh pit still for 49 seconds. That sets Team Dignitas back a little bit, but they have isolation up in a few. Honkono will be the one to start the channel. Sign flanks off to the side, trying to be the one to zone away. Curse will be achieved by somebody. Is it Tempest? Can anyone stop it? The Psionic Storm will reset the channel again.
The mid fort is dangerously low, as is the top, which could give them the edge for 13 and really turn this fight. The Crystal Aegis is out. We see the engagement there. The Ancestral has landed as well. Army of the Dead out. Mene on the backside, trying to regroup with his team. Looking for this. He's going to try and interrupt this one more time. See if they can get 13 in the meantime. Turn this. Mosh pit still 10 seconds away, Gilly.
Both of the defensive cooldowns are not available for Tempest as Honkono brought in. Power slide keeps him there. Rain of Vengeance hoping that they could save Murden. Tempest get the curse, but how much will they lose at what cost?
It's such a huge loss right now. This is the curse against them. There is no ammo there. They're going to get the power side. That is 3 members down. They're going to push in even harder now. Dignitas turning that fight, and now not only does Tempest get 0 value out of the curse, it resets their tribute count to 0 and puts them in a terrible spot as Dignitas has stretched this to a little over a 2-level lead.
This might be the moment we look back on as the checkmate for Team Dignitas. It doesn't look like it now. Yeah, Tempest were the ones to get the curse, but they're going to basically not be able to do anything with it. The Giants in top did a lot. They pushed in the mid. They took out that fort too. Now 1 boss is up, so they could start looking at a boss play. There are so many options for Team Dignitas. They even have Dahaka back in the bottom lane, pushing that back too. Tempest may have had 3 tributes, but they get absolutely nothing.
They get nothing, and you talked about the bosses. I checked the time. Bottom left boss, just under a minute left before respawning. That top one, of course, will be sitting there. It's going to be idled there. The mosh pit, this power slide didn't quite land there, Gilly. Now they're in a bad spot.
They are. Honkono not flanking fast enough to catch up with Dig, but at least the boss was stopped. Tempest will go right to it.
They're going to go to it. No mosh pit threat now, but it is still 15 to 12. No 13. The cleanse onto Tracer. Forced to use that recall. They're looking for a fight. The boss sitting at about 60% health. It will be leashed, and rightfully so is Dignitas there with the threat the entire time. Zelia pushing bot lane, and right now Tempest has their eyes on 13. They're going to push in mid.
That was a really fast, decisive decision from Tempest just to move away from the boss. They don't even have 13. They can't get even further behind. So take some free structures, whatever is available, whatever they can grab, and give them 13 for the eventual fight. It pulls Dignitas into the mid too, and now they head right back up to that boss.
The good thing about that is by stalling that, now Dignitas can trade bosses. This makes it much easier decision and okay to give that. Tempest recognizes that because, Gilly, 16 will be there for Dignitas. The next tribute will be spawning soon, which means curse plus boss. Dignitas making that call. Now Tempest is going to rotate in. No 16 picked up yet. I think Dignitas making the right call to soft retreat. This is Tempest's best chance for the moment to try and turn this game around.
Tempest doing what they are known to do, which is try to find the fight that will get them back into this game. Haymaker was used, pushing back ETC momentarily. 33 seconds until Mosh Pit is up. Not a lot of boss control for either side with that Mosh Pit down, but JPL could push people off the point. He will go in, but he goes right back out, and Tempest steal the boss.
Zelia trying to get away there. The heavy impact coming in as Zelia walking away, using that essence to heal up, and Dignitas concedes the boss without that 16 threat. That call by Tempest was phenomenal. They have kept themselves in the game. They've neutralized a lot of the battleground control. An absolutely amazing macro decision there by Tempest.
And they have to keep going with that. They have sieged a lot of the score, and the boss should be able to finish that off. But 16 is available for Team Dignitas, and that is an opportunity for attack.
Oh, Tracer playing with fire there. The force wall is going to be there. The Haymaker is going to create a little bit of room. Pulse bomb going to miss as well. Honkono going to walk away. Things not looking good for Dignitas over the last minute or so. And all the credit in the world goes to Tempest. By the way, Gilly, we've got a tribute up top, and that has concluded with a Dignitas versus Tempest standoff between Dahaka and Arthas.
Yeah, but the way that Dignitas pushed Tempest all the way down, defending at their fort, lets Dignitas get here with more of their reinforcements faster. Zelia gets stopped again. Dignitas making an aggressive pathway up. They want to stop any rotations there. They want to get this curse, and they will get it.
H82 in all kinds of trouble there as the force wall locked him in for the moment, unable to confirm the kill as there was no pulse bomb available for Tracer, and now they're pushing in with the minions in the top lane. Talent tier advantage. Snitch building up that pulse bomb. He now has it. I believe he should have it now. He's going to look to try and make a play, use the recall to get out. If they get it, it's great. If not, they will retreat. Here it goes.
44 seconds where this keep will do nothing to aid in the defense of Tempest. And Tempest will stand anyway. Without 16, without the keep's help, they're still trying to keep it from going down from Team Dignitas. And so far, the posturing is paying off. But the minions go down in the blink of an eye with the Psionic Storms. And Dignitas are unrelenting, opening up a win condition if they can bring down this keep.
The discipline of Snitch to hold onto the pulse bomb as the threat allows them to posture up onto this keep. Yes, they had curse, but if there was no pulse bomb, you could easily see Tempest try and defend aggressively. Instead, they've had to kind of fall back, defend without 16. They're holding on now. Dignitas rotated over to the middle. Remember, the top boss is is a point of contention on the side of Tempest. Dignitas likely to stay here. Honkono going in.
Honkono's going in, and Cyan's right behind him if he can be. But the force walls are an ever-looming threat against Tempest to split the team apart, split apart the front lines. And Honkono still a fairly weak target because he did take Haymaker, not Avatar, and Cyan is too, especially if he uses Army of the Dead too early on or his Icebound Fortitude. Those force walls have to be a constant presence in the minds of Tempest and how they set up these fights.
You talked about that Psionic Storm. It's doing so much damage. They siege up here. Honkono going again. The force wall going to thwart them off. Snitch, again, has still held on to this. He's looking for a moment, looking for an opportunity. Palm on the other side has thwarted it off, but the threat alone has kept Tempest at bay as they've now postured up aggressively. The stun, nice cleanse, nice ancestral. Bakery coming in to save the day. Don't worry, JP, I got you, bro.
He comes in and he does save the day, but that buys even more space for Tempest. If they're getting very close to the moment of attack, level 16, that talent tier, that will be huge for them. A lot more damage or control for Vala too, depending on what she gets. Psionic Storm,
tickle,
the double
tickle.
storm. Double keep as the 16 comes online for Tempest.
16's online, Gillian, and I think right now, Tempest, they might start to get a little bit desperate. We saw them with the great boss steal on the side of Dignitas, and now they're looking at their own boss. And this might be the best opportunity they'll have. There's no curse coming anytime soon. Level 20, dangerously close for Dignitas if they let this game play out. So they're making the boss call.
Honkono dives in, doesn't get the Stormbolt Cinch. Similarly, the drag misses. Cleansing touch there as Hyde jumps on top, and Honkono will go in once again, this time with the Dwarf launch all the way on the members of Team Dignitas, who are retreating further and further back. This is a place where Tempest are on the same talent tier for Dignitas, and it's the best chance for a fight Tempest would be able to get. Dig doesn't want to give any map control to Tempest. They do have the fort in the top lane, but they don't want to allow anything to push back toward them, especially where they have catapults starting to build up in that lane. But it's also a good place for Tempest to fight, so Dig have to play this cautiously.
They definitely have to play it cautiously. Nice face melt there, thwarted off the Honkono. Dwarf toss coming in, but the slow onto ETC is keeping him from peeling there. Core has taken damage down to 91%. Down to 85. Core, the catapults are mounting. The catapults are taking damage. Snitch looking to try and make a play. The Hungering Arrow in return. The Detainment Strike as well. Everything Dignitas has done to stall this out without the hard engage, Gilly, has been magnificent.
Yeah, genius from Team Dignitas. They don't want to give the boss to Tempest. They also don't want to let Tempest go back. So they keep Tempest just leashing it over and over again, but they never allow for the hard engage. Tempest are running out of options now. They take 50 or down to 58% of their core just for free. And then finally, when Tempest go back to defend, Dignitas get the boss. And now this is just about the end of the game. Tempest have one shot now.
They have to fight in the lane. They have to fight in the lane. You cannot try and defend at the core. You've taken too much damage on the core. They're going to try and poke away here. Poke away. They're going to try and take the fight behind it. Nice face melt one more time. The force wall not able to lock anybody in. They're continuing the pressure up. Vala with that Q build starting to get some damage on. The Rain of Vengeance in return. The core is taking down to 30%. This looks like Dignitas will be able to do it.
There's an isolation on Arthas. They just didn't do enough damage to the boss, and now the full force of Dignitas and the boss are on the core. It goes down so fast. Tempest lose the game. Dignitas with some brilliant decision-making and baiting of Tempest, baiting what Tempest likes to do. Team fighting, never giving it to them. Team Dignitas will go on to face Roll 20.
A masterful game at just the top level. If we look at all three games, you can look back at the medevac call and say that, hey, that was sloppy, but it was ingenious at the time. It didn't work out because Tempest had a great response. Game 2, Game 3, these teams are at the top of their game, making macro calls that you just don't see at any other level of HGC, and that was a phenomenal series there between Dignitas and Tempest.
Yeah, so well done. Lots of different plays on core from Team Dignitas, and that is a threatening force to have to think about for any team who has to go up against them in the future. Let's head back to the analyst desk and see what they thought about this explosive series.
One thing's for sure, this series did not disappoint. Thank you very much, Gillian J. Howe, for that great commentary as we continue down the line. 2-1 overall for Team Dignitas. And the level of play that we saw, I feel, overall from this series does dwarf a little bit what we've seen so far in the tournament. Could be neatened up a little bit here and there, but still, very, very good start, Trixler.
Yeah, definitely there. I mean, again, I got to shout out Mane, dude. Him on Tassadar with those force walls were almost surgical. I don't think I've seen a player that's been as good. I remember K1 Pro in North America having a great run on Tassadar on force wall, but Mane has been putting in work on that hero. There were moments where he had predicted force walls in the fog of war that were imperative, which were needed for them to make objective plays, and he pulled it off. A great series overall for Dignitas, but Mane for sure.
Other thoughts?
I mean, I would agree. I feel like the final game, ultimately for me, I did feel like both teams actually had a couple of moments where very, very questionable. Dignitas was able to kind of reel it back in here with moments and recollect themselves. But specifically, when I looked at Tempest, the opportunity to monk channeling, capturing curse while 3 people are dying in the process, it just really blew the early experience out of the water. And then from that point on, Dignitas just did a good job kind of holding control.
I think it rolls back to me personally, the risk that Tempest took to allow Dignitas to get that map choice off Curstalo. We know that this is a team that struggle in that macro department. They try and patch it with a significant wave clear in games 1 and 2. Game 3, they say, let's go full team fight. We go, how do they try and win this one? It's a boss steal. Yeah, they get the boss steal in the bottom lane. Not much of an influence can actually be achieved from that. You know, Dignitas do this bit of a dance. They go get the Curse Tribute. They push, get 2 keeps. Then the same thing once again happens in the top lane where it's a case of Tempest saying we need a fight to happen. It's the only way we can try and get back into this game. Once again, Dignitas, despite being down cooldowns, I think we had no Ancestral. We had, I believe, Baker and little to no mana whatsoever. But they draw enough bait to say, look, Tempest, try and commit to this, run away, and then you've got catapults and giants and whatever it might be on that core. It's falling down, and you get putting into this sort of a checkmate situation.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, of course, we can head over to the stage now as Kevin is with Bakery from Dignitas.
Thanks so much, James. That's right. I'm here with none other than James Baker himself, Bakery captain and support player for Team Dignitas. Congratulations on your win. Obviously, this is a huge confidence-building win for your team. But let's talk a little bit about that game 1. You guys pulled out that medevac strat. Was that loss more a tribute to Tempest's patience against a strat like that, or were there some executional struggles on your side? What were your thoughts there?
That's not a comp we've played too often with the Folstad. It's not something we played very often at all, actually, but we thought it was a really cool strategy to bring out to, like, give us the advantage in the series, especially if we take the win. And it didn't quite work out that way. So we slightly mis-executed on the initial attempt to go core. And then from that point, they were kind of 2 levels up, and we didn't really know what to do because we haven't been in that situation before. So they played it really well, especially forcing the core.
It was a fascinating game to watch for sure. Now, Korea and Europe are 2 regions we know are touted as the strongest right now going into this tournament. So much so that all the European teams boot camped in Korea prior to this tournament. I want to hear your thoughts on that. We got to speak a bit about it during Media Day, but what were the benefits of a boot camp like that for your team, and were there any potential drawbacks to that decision as well? Just interested in getting your thoughts.
So going to Korea was definitely a difficult decision. We weren't sure if they would be better or if we'd be teaching them a lot by going there. But on balance, we felt like the best European team would win this tournament unless Korea was stronger. And so we decided to go there as 3. If they weren't very good, then we could keep a lot of our strats practicing with each other. But as it turns out, Korea's really good at this event. So watch out for them.
Fair enough. Okay, so you advance to the winner's match. Roll 20, I got to get your thoughts. What is your plan of attack against the NA team?
I mean, NA traditionally isn't as strong a region, but I do think at this event, this is the strongest they've been since way back in 2015. And Roll 20 does look to be the strongest of all of them. They did have a few issues, just as we did in their series earlier, so it'd be an interesting one for sure. I think we're feeling pretty confident.
All right, Bakery, well, good luck. I'll let you get ready for that match. Good luck. Okay, folks, Dignitas takes the win over Korea's Tempest. What a fantastic match that was. And up next, the battle of the ages, NA versus EU. Who's going to take it? You're going to want to stick around. We'll be right back after this short break.